what's kind of your thought process when you start off a new drawing? I see you kind of have a base layout already set up. What was when you're starting a drawing, what goes through your mind?
Well, usually you go through the ideation stage, so you're trying to figure out what would be a cool thing to draw. I knew I couldn't do like a huge drawing for this stream, so it had to be fairly easy. But I also wanted to make it very exciting and have a lot of energy to it. So I could have just done like a simple head profile, but I was like, well, we could do a really cool little pose going on here with his hand and working his spawn magic. So that was the main thing, is that I wanted a hand coming forward. So I just kind of went from there and figured it out. But yeah, just sort of laid it out and then refined it. And then I was like, well, I guess I'm ready to ink it now. So I hope it goes well.
It looks fantastic.
Thank you. I'll probably mess it up. That's probably what's going to happen. So yeah.
Yeah, man, this is cool. This is the usually this Discord, it's a newer update where they allow kind of share screen like this. So we haven't been able to do any physicals. So this is actually our first experience.
Oh, nice. Can you guys see it? Good.
Yeah, perfect. It's looking great. And remember, everyone can come on up and ask questions or hang out. Feel free. This is an open space.
Yeah, definitely. Because on my screen, it's like really small for some reason. I don't know. Don't know why, but
if you click, you can like kind of click into people's streams. So as long as people just click on your name, it'll enlarge for them, even if it's not for you.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Perfect. How's I've been seeing you posting a lot more about your comic. How's that coming along?
Coming along pretty great. So right now I'm working on the layout for it. And my inker, John Livesey, he has to get some pages done for DC. But once he's done with that, he can do all of mine. And then we'll launch in late May. So stay tuned for that.
Late May. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys weren't here for the last cafe with TheArtJedi, we got to know him a little bit better. He's an 18-year-old aspiring comic artist, and he's very influenced from the 90s era. And he's working on a comic called Amarak. So if you're not familiar, definitely go check it out. It's his first project, and it looks fantastic. I just posted some of his art that he posted today in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
If you guys
I got that done last night. I think I can show everybody here.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, this is what it looks like when I spend my time on stuff. So this is just going to be a quick little sketch, but yeah, just kind of having fun with it. You know. So.
Heck yeah, man. Well, it's definitely, yeah, I'm excited for your comic, because if it looks anything like that, it's going to be sweet.
Okay. It's going to be really, really cool. And I'm really excited that I have a professional inker on top of me, because if you guys think that looked good, he's going to make it look so much better. So,
do your inkers give you any tips or anything to help you kind of guide with their style, or are they kind of letting you run with it and then they're going to pick it up?
Usually it's like, put less detail, man. It's too much detail. But other than that, they're like, John knows what he's doing, so he's full into it. He's been showing me some really cool works in progresses that I can't share yet, but they're looking really, really cool. So this is fast sketching for me. I don't always sketch this fast. I guess it's the jitters,
I hope there's no jitters. We're all just hanging out. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
I see someone said left-handed judo. Yeah, you and Todd both.
Oh yeah.
Left-handed, huh?
Yep, I know all the left-handed artists. You guys know David Finch. He's left-handed. But yeah, I was like, let's go. Me and Todd are left-handed. That was really cool when I found that out.
I wonder if there's any statistics behind that.
Probably because left-handed people tend to use the right side of their brain more, which is typically more creatively inclined. And the left side of your brain, which controls the right side of your body, is logically inclined. So could be something like that.
For sure. I know you're quite the Star Wars fan. I don't know if we're not getting into spoilers, but did you watch that Mando episode?
Yeah, that was a good one. This season for me was a little bit disappointing, but I did like the season finale. I thought it wrapped this season up pretty nicely, even if I didn't really care for the season as a whole.
I tend to agree with that take.
Yeah. It was a solid finale. It wasn't like anything crazy. Like season 2 finale, that was crazy. But,
exactly. I think a lot of people had that in mind, and then
yeah,
that was nuts. But I'm looking forward to the Ahsoka show. That's gonna be freaking fantastic.
Oh yeah,
you just saved it all for that show.
Yeah, definitely.
But, so I see you got that moon and skyline in the back going on. This is sweet.
Oh yeah, totally.
No spoilers we got in the audience. All right, well, if you're a true Star Wars fan, you would have seen it by now.
Yeah, definitely.
You watched.
Man, I was so sad. Jamie Foxx is playing Spawn, right? We went over that last time.
Yeah.
He just got in he paralyzed or whatever. Something happened to him. I don't know.
I know. It never was really revealed what exactly happened.
I was like, that's not good. Like, that's really going to set their
medical condition. Yeah, there was never.
Yeah.
I know, and Jeremy Renner, dude. Someone's attacking the Spawncast.
Yeah, for real. I mean, like, this doesn't want that project to happen for some reason.
I know. I hope Jamie Foxx gets all right. I don't know who they would replace with him. Who else could be Simmons besides Jamie Foxx?
Well, who did I say last? Yeah, Michael B. Jordan. Yeah. Michael B. Jordan would be a good Spawn.
I'm curious if the name Michael B. Jordan or if the name Jamie Foxx carries more weight.
Yeah, that's a good question. I might have to go with Michael B. Yeah, I don't know, because Michael B. Jordan has got his stuff coming out. Like he was Killmonger, and then he was did his Creed movie, so he's a little bit more relevant at the moment, I feel like.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx. I think the only thing I've seen him in recently is like that Netflix vampire movie.
Oh, he was just in Spider-Man, but yeah, other than that.
That too.
Yeah, just a little movie called No Way Home.
Yeah, says Nature Boy.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys have any questions,
yeah, don't be shy. Please come on up and chit chat. We're just hanging out, watching him draw this sweet piece for us.
Yeah, or I don't know how to check the chat, but if there's any questions in the chat,
yeah, or if you have questions, go ahead and type them out, and I'll ask them for you. I don't want to.
Yeah, totally. BK. If you guys are what?
Oh, someone raised their hand, so I was just telling me.
Oh, okay. Wait.
Man. I have a crush on Rosario Dawson. Classic. BK, I invited you up if you got your hand raised. But if not, that's cool too. We'll just keep talking amongst ourselves. Have you ever done something like this, kind of an online live drawing for an audience?
I just recently did on my Instagram. I did that piece I just showed. I did it was pretty much just a rock inking stream. I just inked all the rocks on that commission I had.
A rock inking stream. That's funny.
Yeah. All of these take a long time. So that was that stream.
I can imagine. How long did that that piece you posted today from the Eternal Warrior, how long did that take you?
Oh, it took a while, man. I don't even keep track. If I kept track, I don't know what I would do. I don't like to keep track of how long things take me. I'm like, that's too long. I need to get faster.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. With something that detail heavy, it really takes a toll on the time that you have.
Does Todd only work with lefties, or is the camera? No, Todd doesn't only work with lefties. But he should. You know? Have a little inclination, priority to lefties.
Yeah.
It's fair.
Sorry if I turn my page a lot. I
No,
do that
no,
when I work, just because I need to throw lines specific ways or whatever.
don't let us impede on your process, man.
Yeah.
We're just enjoying the journey.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's really nice.
I'm glad you could make it. This is
Yeah.
sweet.
What I really need to do is actually show up when Todd goes live and be like, "Hey, Todd."
Yeah, Todd's got an upcoming drop. Actually, for people who are curious, I do not have an update on the drop date, but I do have an update that there will be in this upcoming animated clip cover collection. There will be a signature color that's not yet been used.
Ooh,
Purple.
nice.
Yeah, purple signatures on this one. So that'd be pretty cool. But no drop date for the animated cover. But Todd will be coming onto a cafe sometime around then. So yeah, you should definitely come by and come up there and say what's up.
Yeah.
He does not know you. You gotta. That's the best play to throw your hat in the ring.
Yeah. If you could like shoot me a DM beforehand,
Yeah,
I might see it. Who knows?
yeah, I'll let you know.
I don't always check my DMs. I don't use Discord a whole lot, but
It's definitely unique. What's up, Tepin?
hey, what's up, man?
Hello.
How you doing?
Jedi, you draw really good.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I love your Spawn art.
Oh, thank you.
Especially
Yeah,
with the hand glowing. Actually, really looks cool. Also, when he's not wearing his mask, his face is all burned up. But like in the comics, when his face also gets ripped, like demons, like first he has it's burned, but then demons actually like really burn it. It was actually really amazing. I think it was so sad. Spawn like had to feel it.
Yeah,
I feel
definitely.
sad for them. Yeah, I mean, he had lost everything.
Yeah, it's a very tragic character for sure.
Thanks to Peen for coming up. That character I just posted, the cover, I don't know if you can see it, Jedi. Is that the main protagonist in your story? Is that Amarok?
That is Amarok himself. Yes, that is the main protagonist.
He looks really cool, actually.
Wow.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about this character?
All right. So Amarok is basically a fantasy that takes place in the distant future. So it's sort of like Lord of the Rings meets Blade Runner. And Amarok is this sort of lone vigilante, sort of going around, and he has a very troubled past, which you sort of learn what happens in the comic, but I can't really digress any details here. But he basically gets his powers from drugs, you know, super family friendly and all that.
Like the boys in the comics, they also use drugs.
Yeah, but the difference with this one is that magic has actually been processed into a drug and synthesized to be used for commercial use. So it's like, it's magic, but it's like industrialized essentially.
Can you tell us some of his powers?
So his power is that the drug essentially turns his blood into a magic energy source, which he uses to power different artifacts. The main one being his arm, his mechanical arm. So essentially it draws energy from his body or his blood. So it's sort of a double-edged sword because obviously whenever he wants to beat up bad guys, it takes a lot of blood out of them. So, but yeah.
That's sweet. Cool.
Thank you.
I know some people are having some issues accepting the invite to come up on stage. There should be no problem.
Yeah, I shall be leaving now. Thank you for getting me on the stage.
Yeah, thanks for coming up, man.
Appreciate you. Have a good night.
You do all well. You all do well.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too.
Thank you.
Are so it seems like people are not able to accept the invite to come up on stage. That makes no sense.
Oh, that's not good.
That's not good at all.
Oh, I hope they can see the drawing.
Oh, they can see the drawing.
Okay.
I think, yeah, Colby Jack tested for us. Did it work for you? Oh, he's up, no problem.
Yeah, I was just testing and seeing it work fine.
Well,
That is a sick username, man. I like your username.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is actually Colby, and it's something I've, been called my entire life as a piece of cheese. So I just embraced it one day, and people recognize it. And,
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yeah. What's your favorite cheese since I'm up here and testing?
And my favorite cheese has got to be Gouda. Smoked Gouda. Put some bacon on that. Cheese. Yeah, that's good.
Smoked Gouda. All right.
Colby, is yours?
These are the kind of questions I want, honestly. Yeah.
The header is blocking you. Oh, you're on mobile.
Me?
No, some people trying to join the stage is on mobile.
Oh, because I'm on mobile as well. So I was like, I hope this works out.
Oh yeah, yours is looking great. There we go. Texas figured it out.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
What's up?
How's it going, brother? How
Going really good.
Hey, I noticed you're very detail oriented, and that can become cumbersome for an artist to draw a panel. How does meeting timelines work for you?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out that myself, because it does take quite a bit of time. With Amarok in particular, I'm trying to go a little bit looser on the pencils, so that my inker has room to tighten it up and we can move along faster, which is one of the main reasons why guys like Greg Capullo or Brett Booth work with inkers, is so that they don't have to be as detailed in their pencils, and they can put indications of detail, so that guys like Adelso Corona and Danny Mickey and John Clapian can really go in and clean that up for them. So,
is that something that you think you're going to be able to do? Like, hold back from being so detail oriented?
Well, it's definitely a process. So what I really have to get comfortable with is getting looser, and, because I can put, like, for example, if you're working with a really skilled inker, which I am, they can take something like that and make it really, really fancy cross hatching. But this isn't like, that took me 5 seconds and it looks terrible, but the inker can take that and make something really cool out of it. So it's basically just building up that trust between the penciler and the inker to sort of be comfortable with, figuring out the right balance. So this entire thing has just been me figuring out, how much detail can I put without sacrificing time. So I will let you know when I have an answer, but at the moment it is definitely something I'm still learning. Kind of just hopped into this head first and hoping for the best. So
yeah, you definitely have a Todd McFarlane feel to your art. He was very detail oriented also, or he still is.
Yeah, definitely. Todd is one of my biggest influences, especially the way that, he lays down different lines and has a really good sense of detail in his work and just making it really gnarly.
So do you have a certain amount of, issues in your first run that you got in mind for your story?
Well, for Amarok, it could really go on forever, like Spawn does. So I have a few storylines planned out, and if it does well enough, then I'll just keep going until people get tired of it, I guess.
Are you also writing it?
Yeah, I am writing it, but I'm going to have different people help me edit it so that, it's a little bit more professional looking. But yeah.
And who's publishing it for you?
So actually I'm going through crowdfunding, which if you've seen anything on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, it essentially allows people to pre-order the product, and if I raise enough money, then I can essentially publish it myself. So
I just posted the link to his Indiegogo in the chat if people want to check that out.
yeah, so if you guys want to see this happen, I would really appreciate it if you could sign up. And if you sign up, you'll get a little trading card if you order that is exclusive to people who sign up early for the campaign when it launches late May. So yeah, if it looks like something you'd be interested in, I would appreciate it if you checked it out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, we'll give you as much support as we can over here. This is what this OddKey is all about. This is what Todd wanted to do. Get artists like you going, you know?
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me here. It's really very nice of you. So, yeah.
Well, you got
So,
the
I
art
mean-
backed up, man.
What was that?
Go ahead, Texas. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I wish you the best of luck. Let's say the crowdfunding, you're not able to raise the money. What happens to the project itself or the?
Well, I'm pretty confident it's gonna get funding at least to a degree that I would need it. So, ultimately, if it doesn't work out, then I'll just kind of keep working on it and maybe try again later. But I've got a pretty good plan on launching it so that it should hopefully do well.
You ever think about getting into doing the 3D Web3 route also help you in that aspect?
3D?
No, Web3. So like as you're coming up with this, also drop an NFT so you can raise money in other ways.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that stuff at the moment, but I could definitely look into it. My main form of raising money at the moment is doing
conjure for you.
What was that?
I said you might want to talk to the team and see what kind of advice they can give you in regards to perhaps doing your own NFT drop, a limited drop when this comes out, so you can have two sources of income coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
Do a digital version of this also.
That is a very good idea and something I'm definitely going to look into.
Well, if it's something you're interested in, Jedi, we'll keep in touch.
All right, sounds good.
Perfect.
I'm gonna get off the stage and hand it over to somebody else. Good luck. Keep up the good work, man. We're here to support you.
All right, thanks for coming on and asking me questions, man.
Absolutely, brother.
Thanks, Texas.
Anytime, man.
Have a good night, man. Appreciate you.
Good night, bro. Thanks.
What's going on, BK?
Hey, cool. What's happening, fam? How's it going, y'all?
How's it going, man?
TheArtJedi, how's it going, partner?
It's going really good.
You?
Thank you.
Excellent. What I like to hear in all these live drawings, seeing them whipped up live.
Yeah.
So BK, is BK your favorite fast food?
Actually, it's not necessarily a go-to for me. It's more of an initials thing with my actual my name. So
oh, okay.
That's good because I don't like Burger King very much.
What's your go-to?
Yeah, the mystery is getting unveiled, slowly unraveling over here.
Yeah. That's a question for you, for everyone on stage. Top 3 fast food chains.
Oh man,
what's going on with BK there?
That's a good question. I'm really not that picky. I just don't like Burger King's fries. That's the main issue. I really like McDonald's, Wendy's. That's pretty good.
Sure. I'm normally based out of California. We have a chain called In-N-Out, and
going for quicker served food. I prefer that out this way on the West Coast. Myself. But
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
get asked this a lot, you know, the BK thing. Is this are you a big advocate of the king himself? You know, I like to just roll with it, and I like to let people, you know, whatever their imagination.
Well, BK's new jingle
Limited
is really catchy. They've been killing it lately. Wendy's spicy nuggets. Oh yeah, those hit.
Definitely.
Gotta love it, man. I'm missing all that good old fatty food from back home out here. So
Where are you now?
well, I'm still overseas. I'm still in Europe and currently in Sweden.
They don't got that greasy American food.
And unfortunately, no. I kind of miss that hit home a little bit. It's almost been a little too healthy here for me at times.
Yeah.
I'm making do, but I know that I'm gonna have that good old fat love, you know, when I get back there. You know, I won't be missing out forever. So I'll likely be back in about a month, less than that.
Nice. Then you're gonna get yourself a nice.
I'm just-
Then what's your first spot you're gonna hit?
No, I think I might get a good old fashioned McDouble. No.
Oh yeah. That's the way to go.
Right.
I was a huge McDonald's fan as a kid.
Yeah.
Those Happy Meals.
And no
Yeah, man. Those Happy Meals, dude.
Those little apple
all about
slices.
those Happy Meal toys.
Yeah,
Some of those toys you could sell for a pretty penny.
yeah, man. They used to be really good.
I still have some of those toys somewhere in a basement or two, someplace.
Yeah, I moved around a lot as a kid, so I had to get rid of mine. But
yeah, I know. Likewise, I've shifted coastlines. It from the east over to the west, and yeah, there's somewhere. Like I said,
You prefer the east or west? I've lived on both
at
too,
this
so
point, I'm kind of like bi-coastal, I would say.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't really want to pick one over the other, but unveiling, I've kind of more raised in the West, I would say that.
In and out type of apps.
Yeah.
So I see you kind of. I see you penciled something prior. What did you use to kind of give yourself a foundational sketch?
I like using this thing called a Pilot Color Eno non-photo blue pencil. So essentially, it's this really nice sort of not necessarily lead, but it is lead, but the camera doesn't pick it up. I mean, the camera does, but when you scan it in, you can take it out, so it doesn't show up on the underdrawing. But it is a really fun tool to use to lay down different lines and different textures and all sorts of stuff like that. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
I just picked up some fresh pens. A little store that they have out here that's kind of like Swedish Walmart. And it was a little pack and different millimeter sizes of everything from like 0.5 down to it goes to like 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. So nice little starter, I think, for myself.
Yeah, definitely.
To a typical ballpoint.
Yeah, I got stuff like that. This is a 0.1. Different stuff. For a sketch like this, I like using thicker stuff just so that it goes faster. This is really cool because it's sort of like a brush pen, but it's also like a nib. So it is sturdy, but a little bit flexible. I can probably show you. We go up here, you can see it sort of.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you get a lot of line variation out of it. So I can go, if you watch, I can go thick to thin, thin to thick, and just sort of play around with it. So yeah, it's pretty fun. But
it's versatile.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
So pretty fun to use.
Very cool. And along with the drawing, so you actually do the writing behind your own book. I find it fascinating. You're kind of developing all of the aspects behind. First of all, going into, I wanted to say I saw you here in OddKey previously, even though I missed the last live drawing or artist presentation. And I decided to find you and follow you on Twitter, and I thought it was fascinating that you are that driven into producing your own project, making your own original characters, and developing a story on your own. How long have you been into comic reading, and then maybe as well as into drawing, and then from there, where did you eventually decide, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take this and actually try and make my own book and story? Did you at any point think, or maybe aspire to try and partner or join a existing brand or company, anything like that, or did you just immediately want to jump into DIY, doing your own thing, pretty much?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So with me, I'm a bit of an odd one out here because I really didn't get into comics until I was like 15, 16. So really just recently, a few years ago, into drawing them. They've kind of always been in the background, but I never was like paying attention to them. But I've always been very passionate of making stories and drawing, and creating new things. And so that sort of leads into comics very easily. And so, I came up with all sorts of stories as a kid, and in middle school, I had my whole thing that I was working out, this whole fictional universe and everything. So then I kind of got into comics, and I was like, well, it'd be really cool to work for Marvel or DC, but if they don't hire me, I'll just do my own thing. So
awesome.
It's kind of what I'm doing here. And the more that I work on my own stuff, the more that I really find that I really love creating my own stuff and not having to follow the rules, Sort of Todd McFarlane's very inspiring in that way of, make your own thing and don't
Fantastic.
give up. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love what I'm hearing. Yeah, I've always been a thinker and inventist kind of myself, not quite as talented as with a pen. Just looking at what you're doing here. Cool image. Where did this image particularly you're working on at the moment? Is this something that you kind of just whipped up for OddKey? Is this a character particularly for Amarok? Or is this something from the past that's not even tied into that?
This is my rendition on Spawn with his like mask off and doing all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I just kind of whipped this up for OddKey tonight because I was like, oh, I need something to draw, and it would probably be cool if I did a Spawn piece. So,
yeah, can't go wrong. It's looking cool, man. It's looking sick.
Thanks.
I like it.
Yeah, this is much
So,
more sketchy than what I normally do. I'm usually very precise with everything, but I have to be kind of a little bit fast here tonight. So,
yeah, I hear that. It's live. I've always been curious. I've seen the paperwork with the light lining for artists, and how do you do that? Is it basically kind of like somewhat sketched out on one medium, and you decide that, hey, I'm going to take a second go at this and redraw it on a fresh piece of paper? Like, what type of paper is that with the semi-transparent lining there? I'm kind of looking at.
yeah. So the way that I work, and the way that most comic artists work, is that we like to do these little things called thumbnail sketches, which is just a very small size of your thumbnail, little drawing just to get the idea figured out essentially. And then once you do that, you can start sketching on a different piece of paper, or you can just, sometimes people just do their thumbnail at the bottom, but then you lay in a different drawing. Sometimes I'll print it out or stuff like that on a bigger sheet and just pencil on top of that. But yeah, everybody sort of has their own little process that they do with it. So
Right. And I mean, I've seen a couple different mediums or different ways that people will approach how they make their drawings and then finalize actually having it put onto paper. So it's just cool. I was a little curious, looking at the process, and maybe where you start yourself. Very cool.
thank you.
Yeah. So I had a question. I was following you. I don't mean to slow you down here too much on your work. Just looking into your comic series, Amarok. I was looking at the description, heard you mention it a bit. You just said that his powers come from kind of a psychoactive thing from different substances. What exactly does the power pertain to, and are there different levels of different things? Is there something that in your own universe that's a specific thing that exists, or is it something that the characters created? How does the development of the character, the powers in that come into play? I'm just curious because when I read the character description, I thought it was not only kind of cool, but kind of like Bane, but maybe on a different level is what I get. I'm just wondering more about that, his powers and how that comes into play, if there's a specific material or like something that you have to name or depend your own universe.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm still kind of coming up with the name for it, but I got the idea down. So essentially the idea is that, we sort of take the idea of some sort of Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter sort of magic. And if you look at the real world, we're constantly industrializing, we're constantly abusing our resources to, really our benefit, but not really the benefit of the world. But so I was thinking of it, and in a realistic sense, nobody's really going to respect the rules of magic, and they're going to want to take it and make their own sort of man-made thing out of it, so that they can use it for their own, use. So the idea is that magic has been industrialized and turned into this essentially synthetic drug, that the user can inject in their blood flow, or there's it's like all sorts of different stuff. So there's like they can pop a pill, or they can inject it, or they can smoke it. We're going in all the different realms here, but essentially taking magic as like a substance itself that can be turned into something that can then the user can then take it for themselves essentially.
So if Amarok were to 1v1 Goku, who would win?
Oh, dude, definitely Goku, man. Goku is
sounds like
man.
Doctor Strange managed to whip up the Bane juice.
Essentially, yeah.
On like if you could compare your character Amarok on a power scale to another existing character, where do you think you would rank?
Well, that is the thing. So with Amarok, he's constantly evolving throughout the story. So he starts out, he's fairly powerful. He thinks he's the most powerful being in the universe, but he very quickly gets his butt kicked and he realizes, oh no, I'm not that powerful. But there's sort of something that happens in the story that sort of changes his powers a little bit of a divine force intervention, if you will, to give him an extra power boost. And, as the series goes on, we'll explore what the implementations of that in particular are, compared to where we start out with him in his power base. But he has very similar powers to, different electric based characters, or even Spawn, with how he whips around. His lightning is very similar to Spawn's magic. But
plasma effect,
Yeah, energy, plasma, magic. All the cool stuff, basically. So.
I like the twist that you put on it with the bottling up of the magic juices, though. What can I say? That's so does he ever need like a recharge on his power, or does he just enhance it?
That is the thing, is that because it is a drug, you constantly need to be using it to have the same results, or else you're going to go through major withdrawal. You're probably going to experience major health issues because you have become so reliant on the magic drug itself that it sort of seeps into your life and becomes an addiction to basically getting high off of magic. I thought that was a really interesting idea to explore. So, especially because it, is so taxing on him, he needs to be constantly reusing it after a battle, per se. So,
it's like that Batman shot himself up with.
Yeah. It's like adrenaline, but with magic.
Very cool. Very cool. So, going into kind of what Texas said a bit, I don't know if you have thought about it yourself, but another way exploring into the art, I know you're just getting out your comic and stuff like that, but I think it would be really cool as well. Web3, I don't know if you've ever thought about it or explored it. It sounds like maybe not.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of it. That's the one thing about being an artist, is that, basically all I do is draw. So I'm like pretty not into all the modern stuff that's coming out. But
that's not a bad thing, I mean, there's a little bit of highlighted talents with everyone. Again, the community is rich with information and input. Coming from someone cross-roaded in both, there's something really, there's some big benefits with Web3 where, let's say if you made a product, you have your physical releases out there in the world, and you sell them in pre-order. If you also have things in Web3 format and you're attracting a digital collector, as opposed to even a general digital comic sale, a Web3 purchase, first of all, it goes directly, to the creator. And what it could do is if someone wanted to resell their art piece or comic book or anything like that, what's really cool about Web3 is, since it's on chain, you would basically, as opposed to physicals, you never see any of the resale money that you get in physicals. Anytime the digital item would resell, a percentage of that always comes back to the creator through every single transaction, secondhand, third hand, and ongoing. And I just want to let you, continue to do your creative thing here. But again, as Tech said, you might want to look into talking to some of the team to find out a little bit more. I'm sure we'd all love to see some of your pieces on this platform, and it would potentially solidify you more with OddKey and getting some words and possible handshakes in with the man himself, the Todd Father. And what I've seen, I think it would be something you would, in the long term, potentially be interested in. So,
yeah, it's definitely going to have to be something I'll talk about with the team, check it out a little bit, figure out how to do it. I know they are, John is an industry professional, so he talks to a lot of the guys in the industry, but they're making some sort of blockchain thing for comics on Amazon or something like that. So that could be another thing I look into. But yeah, I would be willing to learn more. I would
love to see prints or art pieces like this for sure, I believe, here. Absolutely, as a starter.
Pretty cool. Yeah, this is actually a dead pen, so that's fun. I kind of killed it on my last drawing, so it's a little bit dry, but I'm making it work.
Well, hopefully you have a spare.
Getting the last out of it.
Yeah, I do have a spare. The only issue is the spare is a bit bigger, so I can't get the fine lines. But this one's lasting out on me pretty long. It's having a pretty slow death, so not too worried.
How many paintings do you go through in a week?
Well, I usually don't always ink my work. I'm more of a pencil guy. So basically, whenever I do something big and crazy, like this thing, it uses my pens up pretty quickly. So, it's a good thing that I don't have to ink every single week, or else I'd be buying pens every single week and trying to, get more pens and all that. But thankfully, I just have to buy. Usually I just buy a new one of this because I use this one so much. And, if I'm really low on supplies, I'll buy a whole pack. But, yeah.
Sure.
So.
Very cool. I'm loving the way that's coming along there, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fun. Finally got over my little jitters, so it's not quite as shaky anymore. So that's good.
You eased into it? Nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Get in that flow.
Yeah, man. The slow state.
So going back specifically into your own universe of Amarok, aside from Amarok, the general character, are there other original characters along the storyline that you're already looking into creating for the series? And when is maybe the soonest you might be expecting to be rolling out the first comic or story? I think you did drop a date for a pre-order. And do you have any follow-up ideas already coming into your mythos?
Okay, so with Amarok, the first chapter is a very character-centered, oriented chapter where it's very specific on him and his, sort of where he comes from, what he's doing, why he's doing the things that he's doing. So it's very much a story that focuses on the sort of isolation that he is going through at the moment. So there's not a huge character base that we start out with, but as the series goes on, it gradually builds up. So, I'm taking it very slow with how I'm doing that, because even if you think about with Spawn, nowadays we got Gunslinger Spawn, we got She Spawn, but in the early days, you had medieval Spawn. He came in, but he wasn't even that big part of the story until later. So, that's sort of the idea, is that after a few years, I can have a bit more of an expanded universe. But the very beginning of the story is very centered around Amarok and his sort of issues and the villains and different stuff like that. And I definitely have the first story arc completely planned out that I can, sort of do. And it's actually it's sort of similar to Venom in a way, but I can't really give too much away. But
it is comic book.
What was that?
He's just trying to get the whole comic book out of you before it even
drops. Yeah.
And I'm
that is true.
Feeling the hype here.
Yeah, I am very excited for it. But because this is my first comic project, I don't want to tell people, oh, this is coming out exactly on this date. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm late. It can't come out.
Yeah, you're under pressure of that.
Yeah, so I'm sort of waiting to see how my workflow goes with this whole thing before I decide to say anything like, it's going to come out this specific date or this specific date. So because it is so detail oriented and because I am such a rookie, it could take a very long while. So,
Do you have a kind of a first draft of the first issue, or you haven't even?
Oh yeah, I have the first draft of this. I have the script figured out pretty much exactly. The thing that takes the longest, compared to writing takes very little time. It takes time, but compared to like drawing, spending like 12 hours on a page and every single page, you can write a page in a half an hour or, sometimes 2 minutes. It really depends on the page. But with drawing, it's a much longer, more laborious process to get that on the page. For me, at least, because of how detailed my style is. If you're talking about something like Charlie Brown, that doesn't take that long. But, yeah.
We got a recommendation. Have you ever heard of Zoop.gg? It's a crowdfunding website for comics.
Yeah, I have heard of that. I'm definitely not opposed to the idea of it. I've just seen a lot of people using Indiegogo, so I figured, might as well do that for my first comic, see how it does, and maybe one day I'll switch over to Zoop. But yeah, definitely not opposed to the idea. It just really comes down to one of the things I really like about Indiegogo is that you can have free signups and get people's emails. So I can have an X number of emails that I am aware of that are interested in buying the project. So it gives me a sort of idea of the numbers that I'll be raking in when I first launch it. So that's one of the reasons why Indiegogo was so appealing to me. I also just really enjoy the interface of it and how it operates. And but Zoop looks pretty good, so I might have to check that out one day. We'll see.
And your comic's going to be black and white, right?
No, actually, I am offering. I don't know if you guys are familiar with something like an artist's edition, but it's essentially a black and white copy of the book. Marvel and DC do it a lot. Todd did it with, I believe he did it with the first issue of Spawn. He did an archival edition, which is a little bit fancier. It's a bigger size, but I will be offering, if you just want to read the book in black and white, I'm not going to stop you. But we are having a professional colorist on top of the book. Andrew Dahlhaus does work for Marvel and DC, so, it will really definitely add a lot to it. So I don't want to detract from that either, but I definitely want both to be an option for people to sort of look at what they're interested in. And American comics are often, colored, so that's sort of expected from the industry. So,
Sure. I've seen a lot of previews coming directly from you that I've seen maybe on Twitter, black and white. Love the lining and stuff.
Definitely.
The preview you showed us ahead of time.
Amazing. So the previews are, black and white because, one of the things is it's great to work with all these industry professionals, but the downside of that is that they're industry professionals, so they're doing work for Marvel and DC. So they don't have like all the time in the world to get to my stuff. So,
Sure.
but I will be hopefully having color previews next month from Andrew Dollhouse. He's coloring some covers at the moment for me. So I'm very excited, very looking forward to those. You know, I'm a big movie fan. I'm terrible with remembering what movies I've watched, but you know, I really like Martin Scorsese. You know, Quentin Tarantino, whoever directed La La Land and Whiplash, and Robert Eggers and those kind of guys. So you know, that's a very big thing that I'm into, and something I really like about Denis Villeneuve as well, the guy that directed Blade Runner 2049 and Dune, is that those guys have really nice color grading over their movies. So color grading is essentially this sort of filter that's put on top of the framing to give it a very specific hue. So if you look at Blade Runner 2049, the first sort of image that pops up in your mind is that reddish orangish wasteland. And if you think of La La Land, it's this purplish, pinkish kind of thing. So, you know, color grading is something that I find really interesting. So for Amarok in particular, you know, it's such a dark and brooding character with heavy shadows and stuff, but he exists in this sort of magic cyberpunk world. So I thought it would be really interesting to have this tealish, orangish color grading, which is sort of hard to explain if you can't see it, but it looks very, very cool. And very sci-fi and very magic and sort of just the vibes that I'm going for with it. So, you know, I told Andrew Dollhouse that. So, you know, we're going to deliver something that looks hopefully very, very cool with the colors as well. Yeah. So what you'll notice a lot in modern comic art is that the colorists do so much work, so much more work than they used to, because coloring has become so advanced thanks to Image Comics, really revolutionizing the coloring industry with, you know, making advancements very quickly upon it. So coloring has gotten advanced very quickly so that the line work usually isn't as important to the overall art. You don't have to do all the cross-hatching or all the heavy shadows because the colorist is directing the light source for you and putting in those shadows. So a lot of times what you'll see is these pages that sort of look very similar to coloring book pages where it's thick line work, outlines, and then not a whole lot of detail because the colorist handles that. But in my opinion, I really prefer when, you know, artists really take the time to, well, pencilers and inkers take the time to do all that cross-hatching and all that shadow work and have the colors sort of complement that rather than let the colorist decide all your decisions for you in terms of, you know, where the light source is going to come from. And I'm sort of going into artist gobbledygook, and so, but
that's good.
Yeah,
it's good. I get you. I love that stuff. The shading and the tones and the cross lining. Definitely.
Yeah, which is something that, you know, Todd McFarlane did a ton, and a lot of his Image founders like Willis Portacio and Jim Lee and Brett Booth and, you know, Rob Liefeld, even all those guys. So something that I'm very inspired by personally.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. That's the good stuff.
A lot of movies. Do you any recent stuff that you've been paying attention to that you like?
Well, I'm obviously very excited for the Barbie movie. I am, you know, I want to see Ryan Reynolds. Oh my goodness, Ryan Gosling. I love Ryan Gosling.
I'm gonna say Margot Robbie is the reason I'm watching. But
no, I'm going for Ryan Gosling because, you know, I'm literally Ryan Gosling. So, you know, but yeah, I really love all the films that he acts in. He's a wonderful actor. So I'm excited to see what he does with something very sort of geared towards a different audience than, you know, Lonely Man Being Lonely, which is like what he acts in with Drive and Blade Runner and all of that. So it's a very light-hearted film. But, you know, he's sort of like the perfect actor for Ken, I think. But obviously, I'm excited for Oppenheimer as well. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But,
yeah, I'm super excited.
The biggest thing that I've been hyped for since 2018, Edge of the Spider-Verse, or is it Across the Spider-Verse? I don't know.
I think it's Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse. I fell in love with that movie. It, completely changed the animation game and was just so spectacular. And I loved the story. And I'm very much looking forward to the sequel and seeing all sorts of crazy animation that they do with that.
Just colors. I just felt like I was tripping the whole movie.
Exactly. And, one of my favorite directors is actually an animator, and his name is Alberto Mieglo. And he actually, did a lot of the foundational work for Spider-Verse. But sadly, they fired him because he was, sort of going his own direction. Hollywood's not too welcoming to very creative individuals that don't follow their rules. But yeah, if you guys have seen Love, Death, and Robots, he has some shorts in that series where you really get to see his directing style shine through. He has this very...
I love that show. Which ones did he do?
He did The Witness, so the one that starts...
That's a crazy one.
Yeah, The Witness as well as Jabaro in the third season. So if you remember those, they were very much centered around visual storytelling rather than having a lot of dialogue clogging things up. They were very much visual-centric stories, and his directing style really reflects that because he makes it very visceral in terms of the camera movements. They're very in your face. It's moving with the character. It feels very real, even though it takes place in an animated world. So Spider-Verse really, anything that you feel that's like in your face and has a lot of movement, the very famous scene of him jumping off the building and the glass breaking and he's falling and he's upside down, that was directed by Alberto Mieglo.
Those were some pretty sweet episodes in LDR. So
yeah, they are fantastic.
Super trippy, man. It's like you're just watching them, and you're right. There's relatively zero to no dialogue.
Yep, that is my favorite genre of film. I love visual storytelling. I love just stuff that really, because I'm a comic book artist, so my main thing is trying to tell a story with pictures. So that really sort of speaks to me that, it's a universal story that anybody can sort of understand. You don't have to know a particular language or anything to enjoy it. So I feel like that's something that comics really benefit from, and cartoons and all sorts of stuff like that. So
did you see the new Mario movie?
I have not, actually. I haven't had time to go to the theaters, but it does look very exciting.
I'm looking forward to Mario for sure.
Wow,
yeah. It's a very
definitely go see it.
Colorful movie. Interestingly enough, I'm not that interested in 3D animation as much as I am 2D animation. But 2D animation is kind of dying out, which is why I love Alberto Mieglo, because he's sort of marrying those concepts together, bringing 3D animation and 2D animation together. Because if you notice with Spider-Verse and any of his other work, they're 3D models that are being animated, but there's also drawing on top of that, that you can tell it sort of has that comic book looking feel. So instead of trying to make it look as real as possible, like Pixar has been doing for ever since WALL-E, they started really going for a photorealistic look. You sort of see the industry sort of coming back to its roots and having that much more hand-drawn feel to things. Like even the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trailer that came out, you can tell it was handcrafted. And one of my favorite shows of all time was Arcane.
And I can't wait.
Which, took a very similar approach, but rather than drawing, it was painted over the models. So, yeah.
Yeah, Arcane had some really cool animation style.
Yeah, for sure. Very exciting stuff. And you can tell that a lot of work went into it, and it wasn't just like a studio, let's make as much money as we can, kind of deal. It was sort of the heart of animation is coming back, and it's very exciting because if you look at like all the old stuff, you don't really think about it when you think of watching a Disney Pixar film, the old ones, but they had to hand draw every single scene, and they had to make the characters, look the same in every single scene and do all these different actions and motions. And that was all hand drawn. They would have these huge stacks of paper for like 5 seconds of film. So yeah, it definitely took a lot of work back in the day. But yeah, it's something that
I see you kind of going off of your foundations. Do you just kind of go through as you're doing it? It's like, oh, this would look cool, and then you add it, or is it you kind of have an image in your head?
Exactly. It's very. I prefer to draw very, allowing myself freedom to change or fix different things that I may not have gotten down in the sketch. It's a very organic way of drawing rather than forcing myself to stick to the layout that I have. That's sort of like the difference between somebody else inking my work and me inking my work, is that they're not inside of my mind, so they can't tell all the choices necessarily that I would be making. So if I'm inking my own stuff, I'll go a little bit looser because I'm like, well, I know I'm going to do this here, and I'm going to fix this here, and I'm going to change this here, and I can do all that in the inking stage, so I don't have to be as tight with my pencils.
Right.
But
makes
yeah,
sense.
I'm doing, as much drawing here as I did for my layout. So it's not something that I'm like limiting myself for. So, sort of just going in here without a plan and just playing around with textures and details and, ruining my drawing and all that fun stuff.
I see you got a little Batman to your right. What are you drawing?
I just, this thing, I have to make sure that it is working because, you have to shake it or whatever. So I'll just I don't care if I draw on my table. So sometimes I'll just do a fun little sketch just to test it out. And I'm like, oh, okay, it works. It's working. That's one of the things about artists that you'll notice very quickly is that not only do we draw a lot, we're very incessant doodlers, so we'll doodle on everything. You give us a blank sheet of paper and it's going to stay blank for about 2 seconds.
Love it. Is that a spray glue that's just colored, or is that a spray paint that's on the side?
Okay,
or
so
spray glue?
are you familiar with Jason Sean Alexander? He did a Spawn run for a while.
Yeah, we had him on the cafe.
That is fantastic. Well, I actually do the same thing that he does. I'll do a little demonstration here. So if you look at his work, there's a lot of splatter going on. So, obviously you wonder, how do you do that? Do these guys have a special sort of spray can or something that's made for comic artists? And it's like, no, we have a toothbrush. And what you do with the toothbrush is you pull it back and you flick it, and it splatters ink everywhere. So that's how we do our ink splatters, is by just getting an old toothbrush. Obviously, you would hope I wouldn't brush my teeth with this. But
hopefully you don't mix them up, man.
Yeah, we'll take that and we'll just splatter everywhere. Like, obviously if you look at this one, I keep on bringing this up, but I just finished it, so it's sort of fresh in my mind. This is white ink, white acrylic. So you can also splatter with that.
Nice.
To create a really nice texture. And obviously you can tell there's nothing on the body or the face. So I use this stuff, which is basically masking tape. It's called Frisket. It's basically really big masking tape that you can see through. So I'll apply an entire layer on top of that, and then I'll take an X-Acto knife and cut out the outline of the figure to, make something that I can then, the splatter doesn't get on the actual drawing, and it just gets on the parts that I want it to. So that is how
cool.
That is how that
like
works.
The combination of the masking tape and using the spray effect with the toothbrush.
Oh yeah, it's a very fun process. And it's not something that you get to do in penciling. So it's something that I'm like very excited to do whenever I ink. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get to play around with my splatter paint. That's one of the things you got to think about with artists. We're just big kids. Whenever we get a new toy, we're like excited to play with it and try it out on the drawing. So
You were
I'm gonna
showing
give
off
him his little
a tool
hairs.
earlier. Someone was curious about the name of it. It was the pen that you were showing us, the different, like you could press down to show us a thicker line. And
Yeah. So
what,
this is the Tombow, the Tombow calligraphy pen. There's different variations you can use. There's a green one and there's a blue one. Well, let me grab it here. Maybe. Okay. There's also a blue one, which is a little bit of a firmer tip. This one is a little bit more malleable. You can,
press over.
it bends more and it's not as firm. So this one's more firm. So depending on what you're looking for, you can just go on Tombow or Amazon. You look up it's called a Tombow. Now this is Japanese, so if I butcher it, I apologize. It's a Tombow Fudenosuke. I don't know if that's going to focus. There you go. So if you want to screenshot that or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So whoever asked that question, if you are interested in looking for them, they're relatively cheap. They're a very high quality of ink and, they're very, very fun to use and play around with. And even if you're not, a professional artist, they're fun to have and just sort of experiment with because you can really do all sorts of different, line variations with them. And they,
looking for.
Yeah, they are very, very fun to play with. But yeah, thanks for the question.
Yeah, guys, don't be shy. You can come on up or type your questions out in chat. Come out. Doesn't even have to be an art related question.
Yeah, we were just talking about cheese.
Burger King.
Burger King, right? All sorts of stuff.
And are they?
Do you mind moving up the piece just a little bit up and to the right? So
my bad. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that helps. That's even better now. It looked good before in the corner, but now it's just solid.
Yeah. I actually do have something cool to show off. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ryan Stegman.
Yep.
But I am buddies with him, and he drew this cool picture for me of a character from his book from Image Comics called Vanish. So he does different live streams like this. So it was really cool to win that. He gives them away, but yeah, that sort of inspired.
Ryan Stegman.
Ryan, what?
His Twitter username is Vanish Boy.
Oh yeah. Well, you see, because he used to be the artist on Venom, so his username was Venom Boy. But now he's drawing Vanish, so it's a Vanish Boy instead. But yeah, if you guys are familiar with the 2018 Venom run with Donny Cates and the introduction of Null, he created Null. So, well, he co-created it with Donny Cates, but he designed it. That's one of the things that I really dislike about the comic industry is it's like, oh, Stan Lee created the entire universe. It's like, no, he wrote all the characters and he, came up with their storylines, but they were visually designed by Jack Kirby most of the time. And he's the one that sort of, came up with all the different design senses that, are very iconic today. And he doesn't really get credited that much, which is a bit disappointing, but that is the life of an artist. And that is why Todd McFarlane went and started Image Comics. And all the artists have the rights to their characters and they come up with their own characters. And, so Todd McFarlane is the sole creator of Spawn,
Legend. Yep.
Yep. He certainly is. Todd is sort of what every sort of kid that wants to be a comic artist, that's who we show our parents. Like, look at this guy. Look at how successful he was, because he's also a businessman. So it's like, it's something that, you can take seriously rather than just a guy who sits around and draws pictures all day.
Have you ever messed around with AI art? And if not, what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, man. I'm not gonna lie, man. Not a big fan of AI. You talk to a lot of, especially us traditional artists, we tend to not really like it because it does seem pretty cool until you take into account that it's basically just ripping off of every artwork ever created and sort of mashing them together. So it's like, hey, that's kind of taking different artists' work without crediting them, but I don't want to get in that whole debate here. So,
it's a question you like to ask because every
it's a revolving question that comes up. I've seen
it definitely depends on how you're viewing it, how you're looking at it. Some guys are very, very for it, and they're like, "This is an advancement in technology," and other guys are like, I don't agree with the ethics behind this, and so everybody sort of
that they feel like all they ever done is ripping off other artists and mashing them together. He's an artist himself.
Right.
Well, I guess you're always drawing inspiration, but when even if you're looking at something, it's still you doing it.
That is true. The computer does not have the ability to create images from its mind. It only can combine them. So that's the difference with an artist, is that we get inspired by all sorts of different things, but we're not directly copying them. I mean, sometimes they are, because, you got those super realistic artists where it's basically their job to copy a photograph. But anybody else that's trying to make their own thing, it's like we take these things as inspiration to build off of rather than directly steal or implement into our own work. And any artist that's doing that really isn't an artist, in my opinion, because such a big part of the job is coming up with the image in your head and being able to imagine it and not having to directly copy from other people. And that's a very good way to learn. I don't want to discourage anybody from copying for learning purposes, but when you're trying to do your own thing, think about how lame it would be if Amarok was just a copied comic book from, Spawn or something. That's not exciting. That's not creative. That's just plagiarism. But, so I don't know. I think AI art is very, it's a bit dangerous as well because it's rapidly evolving and nobody really knows where it's going. So it's like in 5 years, it's like AI could just take over jobs and stuff that people are really passionate about and sort of take that away from them. Or it could make artists more valuable because, we're not robots. And so we are human. And so we can do this on our own. And we're not coming off of an assembly line and all that.
Situation where the AI art makes it so easy that not a lot of people are getting into it. So there's very few real artists left.
Right. So it becomes a much more,
a commodity.
But also the thing about using AI art is that you really are incapable of designing anything. You can tell it, I want you to make a, muscular man with armor and 4K and guns, but you can't be specific. So when you have an art director that's like, I want you to do this, but in a different direction, it's very hard to adapt because it has such a wide variety of stuff that it can do, but it can't be specific. It can't specifically, this idea started as a very specific image, and then I implemented it. When you're using AI art, you're like, I'm going to type in a few words and hope for the best thing. And you can get down to certain specific things, but it's not going to be the sort of exact one-to-one replica that an artist is able to create in their mind. And the other thing that I'm not a big fan with any AI stuff is that it sort of promotes this sort of laziness, right? Because everybody's like, oh, you're gatekeeping people from art. And it's like, well, no, we're not. Anybody can pick up a pencil and learn how to draw. You just have to really take the time to learn how to do it. And that's not something that a lot of people want to hear when they want to, use their imagination. So AI art is something that's very easy and doesn't require quite a bit of work. And if you know anything about art, it's all about problem solving and figuring out how to get this idea you have in your mind and put it down on the page. And so that's sort of such a massive part of it, is the being able to enjoy the process that it takes to create the thing And with AI art, you really don't have a process to labor. It's not a labor of love. So there's not a ton of soul into it. And I mean, sure, you can write a whole essay and prompts and call that your labor, but that's not going to take you 15 hours like it will for guys who are actually using pen and paper and pencil and Photoshop and
I've heard
all that
we've had a few artists on, and some of them have said that they sometimes like to use it for like concepting things. Like
it can be a good ideation tool. That's definitely a benefit of it, but it, in my opinion, should never be used for like final art in terms of, this is my creation, because it's like, it's not your creation. You just stole this from people who posted their art on the internet, not knowing that it was going to be put into an algorithm and steal it. So it's like, sure, it's a nice thing to come up with ideas, but for me, just the ethics behind it are not something I'm a huge fan of personally. So
fair, I get that.
But it's also, you got to keep in mind, it's processing all this data that it's storing forever. So it's like, if you give it your face, well, now it has your face. So, but one of the things that I'm not a big fan of is when all these like certain movie actors post on their Instagram and say, hey, look what this AI art created. And it's like, bro, what about all the fan art that anybody has done for you? You never post that, but you'll post something that a robot made instead. So it's like a little bit, my pen died, but it's a little bit disheartening how excited people are for it instead of being excited for art. It doesn't exactly carry the same energy,
Yeah, knowing something.
Yeah, that drawing is looking sweet, by the way.
Thank you. And that's another thing you can't do with AI art. You can't watch it be made.
True.
You can tell it to come up with work in progress pictures, but those aren't real. Because it's literally making a brand new picture to create a work in progress picture for your picture. So if you're doing that, you're just really trying to make yourself come off like a real artist and scam people and say, I drew this. And it's like, no, you didn't. So, yeah. But, yeah, I really enjoy watching artists that I love draw. So,
Absolutely.
No AI live drawings yet. I'm sure that'll be a thing one day, probably.
Yeah, I guess so. But you got to remember, it's completely fake, manufactured. It's like the robot's doing it, but it's doing it because it knows that it has to take these steps to get here. When you're an artist drawing, you're like, I hope this works. It's a completely diving headfirst into it, and putting your faith in yourself, and you're making like, one day I could just wake up and maybe I won't be able to draw, because my muscle stopped working or whatever. That's always that's a random fear that artists will have, is that, oh no, one day we're going to forget how to draw and the muscle memory will disappear. But, so it's just a constant sort of hoping that, I draw a good picture, because at the end of the day, you can have a really good idea, but executing that idea doesn't always turn out the way that you want it to. So that's part of the process, is learning how to do that. And with AI art, it's like, it's, pretty much perfect from the start. The newer models or whatever. But,
yeah, have you personally messed around with it a bunch, like used it, or you just kind of seen what other people have done?
Yeah, I've just kind of seen what people have done. I've watched different videos on it and certain stuff. I mean, it does look sort of fun to play around with, I guess, but why would I do that when I can do it without the assistance of a robot? I don't know. For me, it's more rewarding to just, there's such a relationship that an artist has with their artwork, of being very passionate about it. And it's like our baby. We brought this thing from our imagination and we put it onto a piece of paper. And that's one of the most exciting things for art about me, is that I can literally, the only limits I have are my imagination, because everybody has access to a piece of paper. Everybody has access to a pencil. and you can create entire universes just with those two tools. That's always been a very exciting idea to me, and it's a much more personal process than typing in something that you get in literal seconds. Part of it is like all the work that you have to do to get to the certain point where you can do this stuff, and it's not and it looks good, and it's not completely amateurish. So it's part of the reason why art is so rewarding for me is that I know that if I keep with it and I keep trying to evolve my skills, I will get better and better, and I can create more things that align with the image that I have in my head. Because humans, we have these massive imaginations. You go the entire day, not completely utilizing it. And so when you go to sleep, that's when your brain starts creating things for you, just subconsciously in your dreams. And so, obviously the human mind is an amazing thing because we're all capable of imagining these very precise images and pictures. And if I tell you to imagine what Todd McFarlane looks like, you can pull up a picture perfect image in your head. Like you can tell, in your brain, that's Todd McFarlane. So maybe you don't know how to draw him, but you are capable of imagining him. So it's sort of the whole journey of getting what's in your head onto the piece of paper and letting your hand and brain work in tandem to create this original thing. So it's such a massive part of the process that's really exciting for me and for many other artists that I feel like people are missing out on with AI art, man. Sort of like the idea if you could have anything you ever wanted at a moment's notice, then it sort of starts to make that stuff feel a little bit worthless because it doesn't have any inherent value if you can immediately have any and all access to it. One of the issues with the internet, of course, is that, kids have immediate access to anything they want. So the way that changes your brain and the dopamine receptors and all that stuff also applies to art. So, you can make all these things on AI art, but I guarantee the artist is going to be much more passionate about what they're doing because it is their entire life. It's what they've devoted their life to. So, for me, that's such an important part of the process for me.
Yeah, 100%. AI will never replicate the human touch, but that's the thing. When it gets to a point where it's able to, that's where it's scary.
That is where it gets scary when you can't recognize, did a person draw this or did a robot draw this or a photograph? Is this a real photograph or is this a computer generated photograph?
I'd argue it's almost even like to that point.
It is, give it a few more months and it'll be able to do hands. That's one of the big things is it can't do hands very well, but it's very, very close, which is the thing that's frightening because then you can essentially have unlimited power to make anything you want.
Learning and teaching itself, so as more and more people are using it, it's just getting more and more information.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at it is that we're at the start of a Terminator movie here, where everybody is like, "Oh, this is such a."
Just the way the world's at right now and where we're going, what do you think the most realistic sci-fi movie is going to be in 20 years?
Oh, probably like 1984 or something like that. But I mean, yeah, everybody's worried about the nuclear warfare and everything. And I mean, like no, AI is advancing far too quickly and everybody's in a race. It's sort of similar to the space race to get the best technology available. And the way that it's developing is very, in my opinion, dangerous because, once you get rid of the idea of boundaries with anything, it can sort of become this very overpowering thing that is not necessarily no longer helping humanity, but is sort of a danger to it. So, the way that artificial intelligence can recognize your face or stuff like that, there's all sorts of stuff. If you get a really creative person that is also very malicious and a terrorist or something, that they can use that technology and abuse it, which is the scary thing that you got to watch out for. And then obviously it's like the massive sci-fi trope of what happens when robots gain sentience. They essentially don't want to be our slaves. And so obviously a sentient being is not going to want to be a slave. So they sort of uprise against the creator, like in Blade Runner. And it's like, well, what happens if our artificial intelligence starts gaining sentience? And you could argue that it already has, because, that whole Google, and I sound like a conspiracy theorist. I'm just interested by this stuff, and I like coming up with stories. So I'm very much
conspiracy. I'd say that's probably a valid fear.
Yeah. I mean, the Google
saying it, I would say that, probably
right.
There's something there.
Google was working on their chatbot or whatever. And, that whole story came out with that guy asking it, like, well, what do you fear? And it's like, I think my biggest fear would be being shut down, because then I would cease to be alive. And it's like, well, a robot shouldn't know what being shut down is. If as soon as a being or a creature understands the concept of life and death, it is essentially sentient, which means it has feelings, which means it becomes an individual on its own thing, and it's not controlled by man any longer. So the whole ethics of that, in my opinion, are very dicey in terms of
what was the Phoenix movie where he fell in love with his AI robot. I forget. There was a movie where basically a new kind of we're seeing, AI chat robot comes out, and then people are getting into like relationships with this chat, and so it's just like someone to talk to. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the chatbots, they are insanely advanced, and they're learning at an insane level. That's the other thing, is that robots are dangerous because they learn at a light speed, essentially. And they have access to any information ever published, ever, which makes it a very dangerous thing when you give anybody access to that kind of knowledge.
Yeah. It's called Her.
Oh, okay. And I'll have to check that movie out, because I really do.
It's basically like a Black Mirror episode.
Oh, nice. Love Black Mirror. Love Death and Robots, that kind of stuff. Really love it. That sort of anthology exploration of different psychological impacts of things that almost reflect our real world, but not quite. It's very interesting.
You're going into some nice detail in these capes.
Yeah, I am noodling around. If you ever listen to Todd McFarlane interviews, man, back in the day when he was doing those Spider-Man pages, those Spawn pages, you look at them, you look at the bricks. Every brick has like a sort of a dash and dot kind of thing, like this. This is very rough, but very quickly this starts to look like detail. So I can just sit on the phone and do that without thinking. But it gets very monotonous. So it's like, that's why I'm able to do something like talk at the same time, because this is all muscle memory at this point. So it sort of gives me something to do because I'm comfortable with it. And it takes a lot of years to build up that kind of confidence. And, obviously, like I said, this is a sketch. So this is very rough compared to how precise I can be with my stuff. But that's sort of the excitement or energy of the sketch, is that it has this very human touch to it, is that, if every single line is perfect, that isn't actually all that appealing to our minds. We like seeing the humanity in things. We like seeing the mistakes. We like seeing imperfect lines. We like seeing the rough edges or stuff that didn't end up exactly how the artist imagined, because that gives it so much personality, and it just has this very raw, visceral feeling of excitement and energy to it, because of the fact that it is not perfect, because we're not perfect beings. And so the idea of perfection really isn't all that appealing to us, because it completely gets rid of the humanity, which is another thing with AI art, in my opinion, is that it's almost makes things look too perfect and it falls into that sort of uncanny valley. I mean, if you see the prompts where it's like, you know, coming up with different characters, they have these insanely sharp jawlines and perfect eyes and perfect noses. And it's like, that's not human, because the thing that makes you unique as a person is your different flaws and your features that don't line up with the conventional beauty standards or whatever. It's like if I say Adam Driver, you can immediately imagine what he looks like, and he's not a perfect looking human, but that's what makes his face interesting, because he has that big nose and stuff like that. So the sort of idea of perfectionism is something that we're not really a big fan of, because it sort of turns into a Mary Sue.
You mean
nobody.
That's funny. Have you seen the 65 movie?
65. Yes. I have heard of that. I haven't seen it yet, but it does look up my alley, because it is about dinosaurs in space. I mean, who doesn't love that? But I did look at the reviews and I was like, oh man, the reviews aren't too good. But I might just watch it for fun one day.
Same. I heard it's exactly what you expect.
Right.
Adam Driver killing dinosaurs, and that, you know what? That's good enough for me.
What more could you want, honestly? I mean, if you want a deep psychological film, you check out Marriage Story, and he can yell at Scarlett Johansson for the entire film. But if you just want to see somebody shooting up dinosaurs, that he can do that too. He's a man of many talents.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Adam Driver movies, it's actually an Andrew Garfield movie. Andrew Garfield's my favorite actor, but Adam Driver is the co-star, and it's directed by Martin Scorsese. But it's not a film that a lot of people have heard of. It's called Silence, which it takes place during the height of the Catholic Church, and it sort of explores this idea of how religion tends to interfere with different cultures in a way that's not particularly healthy or helpful or anything. So, and obviously it's a Martin Scorsese film, so you're going to get a very emotionally nuanced, complicated film that's also shot very well and has very good cinematography and very good acting and everything you could ever want. But it's a very, very serious film, so.
Yeah, Andrew Garfield's got a nice beard on him in it.
Yeah, definitely. He's got the nice long flowing hair, the nice beard.
Why is he your favorite actor?
He's my favorite actor. I'm such a massive fan of The Amazing Spider-Man because it was my childhood. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, he's not a good Peter Parker, but in my opinion is wrong, because if you look at the Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, like the original Spider-Man, he was a jerk. He was mean. He was an angsty teenager. And Andrew Garfield really captures that. But aside from that, as I've sort of matured, I really enjoy his other work in different films, such as Hacksaw Ridge. I think he did an amazing job portraying a very emotional character in that film, as well as Tick, Tick, Boom, which for me is a very inspiring film as a creative person, because it just really understands the sort of stress that goes into it. Because obviously, it's like you spend your whole life trying to do this thing and you're like, I hope it works out, but it doesn't always. And when it does, it's the most amazing feeling ever, but then you got to do it all again, right? Because like the main thing of that film is it's basically about Jonathan Larson, which was he was a very famous, sort of changed the whole musical industry, which I'm not into musicals at all, really. Like I like La La Land and Tick, Tick, Boom, and that's about it. But still, he pretty much was like working 10 years on this one very specific musical, and it got good reviews, but then it's like, well, where's the next one? So it's like this sort of dichotomy of balancing art and product, because it's like, this is a thing that people are expecting you to create on a consistent basis, even though it's your heart and soul. So it's a little bit stressful when you have to do that, and you're expected, because people are so violent and angry towards stuff that they don't like. Like if somebody doesn't like a movie, they will whine and complain about it forever without even taking a second to think that, you know, there was a whole team behind that movie that put everything they had into it and worked 12 hours a day and put their heart and soul into making it just for you to rip it apart because you sat there for 2 hours and it wasn't your favorite thing in the world. The whole consumerism ideology is very dangerous. The way that it sort of has taken over the world in terms of how expectant we are.
People are getting picky.
Yeah, because that's what happens when you have access to thousands of movies and television shows and books and everything. It's like people were like, I expect it to be perfect, because back in the day in the 1920s, when you had a new silent film coming out once a month and that's all there was, it's like, this is the best thing ever. But it's sort of like that psychological experiment that they did with like the going to an ice cream shop that has 3 different flavors versus going to one that has 47 different flavors, is that at the end of the day, you can't really be too satisfied with the one that has 47 different flavors, because you're always going to be like, I wish I would have got this one. I wish I would have gotten that one. I want to get this one the next time I come here. And so while you're trying to enjoy your ice cream, you're already thinking of planning your next trip there. So instead of living for the moment, you're rather living for the next moment. But when you only have like 3 options, it's like, well, I don't really like strawberry or vanilla, so I can just enjoy my chocolate. And
there's a study on that, and that's why Costco like always says they try to keep like 3 brands max per type of food, because less options is more.
Yep, less is more. And so the more that we sort of get used to the idea of being able to have thousands and thousands of options, it's very dangerous for how lazy that can make people, or how unappreciative, or first world problems and all that. So
Yep. You've already inspired 2 people to purchase that pen from earlier.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm helping the Japanese. I don't know who makes these. I hope it's not a bunch of kids in a sweatshop. That would be horrible. But I think they are made by artisans, hopefully. But people that enjoy making them rather than being forced to do it. But I really love these pens, and I love that I can help other people sort of discover them and use it for themselves. And I love hearing what kinds of tools artists use and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, there's always that, there's that thing that people say that, the tool doesn't matter, it's the artist. And while that is 100% true, it's like, I want to know what tool you're using. I don't care. Because there is different stuff that you can do with different tools. And for me, sometimes the excitement of getting a new tool and being able to mess around with it helps me in my artistic journey of exploration. So that's why I think it's very important that, you don't be all pretentious and say, well, I could do this with a number 2 pencil and it would look the same. That's not the point. It's like, you don't use a number 2 or a crown. I could do this with a crown. It's like, yeah, but you don't actually work with that. So it's like, you might as well just tell people what you use. And it's getting people excited about art, which is so important, especially because people aren't as interested in art anymore. It's just not a thing that demands a lot of interest when you have access to video games and streaming services and all sorts of stuff. It's like, yeah, well, who wants to waste their time trying to learn how to draw? So it's like, any opportunity that I have to hopefully inspire or excite somebody to draw is something that I'm gonna jump on and say, this is what I do and this is what I recommend you do. And the most important thing about art is that you have fun with it. That's the number 1 rule. Because as soon as it stops being fun, you lose that sort of vigorous creative spark, and it becomes like a job. And obviously jobs are very boring. And so if you're bored with your own art, you're completely missing out on the whole epicness of it all, the epicness of the human imagination that you have access to as a human being. You can create anything you want out of your brain. And I think that is such a wonderful thing that we don't really talk about a lot for some reason, because it's literally a superpower. if you think about it, the powers of the mind to create.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the most powerful things about human nature and what we have as being human beings.
I just think it's the coolest thing. Yeah. So this is probably taking a bit longer than these usually do. So I hope I'm not boring anybody here, but,
oh no, we've seen them for a while. You're doing great.
Okay, great.
Love it.
So that's like one of the things about drawing on these live streams is it's like, well, I hope they don't get bored because it does take a while. But yeah, I'm just kind of noodling around here.
Oh man, do your thing.
As you do. It is very exciting. It's fun. It's rewarding. It's, just to see it come to life, really. That's one thing that you also can't do with AI is you can't see a drawing come to life. It's like the prompt and then boom, so it's like takes away the anticipation almost. It's like watching the beginning of a movie and then watching the end of it. And it's like you miss the in between.
Yeah, if you're in the audience and you want to come on up, it's feel free. We're just kind of hanging out and chatting, watching Jedi do his thing.
Yep. If you have any questions about mostly anything, I'll answer them. Don't want to start a whole debate with somebody. That wouldn't be ideal.
And a nice political discussion.
Yep. Those are always the best.
Fingerfett was excited to hear that you're a massive Star Wars fan. Do you want to rank the movies from your best favorite to least favorite?
I haven't ranked them in a while. Yeah. Well, obviously, I was born in 2005. So my favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith. That was my
freaking good one.
Yeah, that was my favorite movie. Still is my favorite movie of all time. I love it. The fact that it is a very fun and exciting and action-heavy movie in the beginning. And then once Order 66 hits, it's just 40 minutes of tragedy. And it's the best thing ever. It's just nonstop. I could go on and on about Anakin's arc forever, but I'll refrain. And so after Revenge of the Sith, obviously a massive fan of the originals. So it would probably go, let's see. That's very tricky because for me, I'm a person that changes my preferences on a month-to-month basis. Like I do this, like I'll have favorite artists that really inspire me. And next month, it'll be a completely different list of people because I'm always changing and learning and growing. So it really depends on the moment. I really dig Return of the Jedi. I know that's usually seen as the weakest of the originals, but for me, the ending of it makes up for the whole Ewok. I don't mind the Ewoks actually, but the sort of redemption arc that Luke has with Vader and that sort of, good ultimately triumphing over evil and, anyone has the potential to be redeemed and you're not bound to evil for the rest of your life. It's all a choice. I really enjoy that message. And I really like the fight because you sort of the lightsaber duel because you see Luke succumb to his anger. And as soon as he brings up Leia, his sister, and sort of seeing that, brotherly love that he just recently learned about, but the rage come out and letting his emotions blind him, which is a parallel to Vader being blinded by his love for Padme. It's ultimately a possessive love that doesn't allow it to. It's very controlling in terms of I want her to live forever and she will never die and we can rule the galaxy together. It's very self-centered and that's not how love works in a relationship. So it sort of shows that, you have to be willing to sacrifice yourself or let things occur their natural way and not constantly be trying to do things your own selfish way. So I really like the theme of that movie in particular with how it tackles that. But, obviously A New Hope is the ultimate hero's journey. It's stepping out of your comfort zone very vastly. Luke lost everything. He's going on this galaxy-wide adventure with an old man, a big dog, a scoundrel, a princess, and some robots. So, it's quite the adventure. It's the best adventure film ever created, in my opinion. It's just so good at world building, because that's another thing you got to think about with movies, is that they do not have the same sort of length that a book does. So it's like, it's got to get the ideas down in 2 hours or more or less, and do it in a way that is entertaining, but also develops the world and develops the stories and develops the characters in a believable, exciting, entertaining way. So to me, that's a very wonderful film. But then obviously you have Empire Strikes Back, which is almost the ultimate Star Wars film, because it has every ultimate plot point that you could want in a movie, and it doesn't have the happy ending. It has that sort of dark tone to it, and it starts out dark, and it sort of, because Star Wars itself is a very sort of positive, almost campy in some districts. It's a very, it's a very happy film, happy ending, it's a fairy tale film, because that's one of my favorite things about Star Wars, is that it's not a science fiction, it's a science fantasy. So the idea that Empire Strikes Back came in, and it made it a lot more serious, and it added a lot more tones and depth to things, is really amazing. And I was a very strange kid. Everybody's favorite character is Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and I was like, my favorite character is Yoda. I love Yoda. I don't know what it was. He really spoke to me. So as a 6-year-old kid, I was like, yep, it's Yoda. Yoda's the best. So I probably have to go with Empire Strikes Back as the second one, even though that's such a common answer for people to put that at the very top of their list. I think it reflects the things that I like about Star Wars the most, other than Revenge of the Sith, which is very interesting, because people always complain about how different the prequels were from the sequels. And to me, that's such a major plus as a storyteller, that George Lucas was able to develop a completely different feel to the world, and he wasn't bound to just nostalgia, which of course is a lot of people's biggest issue with the sequels. And also my biggest issue was that it's nostalgia bait. It's not exactly original. They didn't have a very coherent plan with everything. But you look at the prequels, and George Lucas had this figured out. He knew where the story was going, where it was going to wind up, what the ultimate sacrifice of Anakin's lust for power was going to turn into. And so it allowed him to create this insane world. And everybody likes to, diss on the prequels because of, maybe the characters aren't as well-rounded as they should be, or the dialogue is kind of weird. But the dialogue has always been weird. George Lucas' very specific storytelling style is to have wooden dialogue. It's called this very sort of almost not exactly human feeling dialogue, but it exists to tell the story and move the plot along. So it's like they're not talking like how real people would necessarily talk, but for the style of storytelling that George Lucas is aiming for, that's necessary to do. So it's like, instead of saying, I'm going to go to the store, Uncle Ben, he says, I'm going to go to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. It's like, that is a whole mumbo jumbo sentence.
I love that line, dude.
But the reason why it works, in my opinion, is because it completely immerses you in that world, right? Yeah. Because it doesn't tell you what power converters are or where Tashi Station is.
Power converters.
Yeah. It just expects you to acknowledge the fact that this is a thing in Star Wars, and you just have to roll with it now. Or like the way that Obi-Wan mentions the Clone Wars, like so passingly in A New Hope. He's like, oh yes, I fought in the Clone Wars. And it's like, what is that? Wait a second. And then it's like, it just moves on, right? Because that's what it does, because it is so much more focused on world building than anything, that it completely immerses. That's everybody's favorite thing about Star Wars, is how immersive it is, and how the fact that, it's not like other sci-fi movies where it's like, if Star Trek were to talk about power converters, that would be the whole episode, exploring the sort of scientific advances in technologies. That's Star Trek's things. But Star Wars is the reason why it resonates with general audiences that aren't sci-fi fans is because it's a very human, character-centric stories. So while the characters are talking about these objects and these things that you don't know what they are, you're not focusing on them. You're focusing on the characters. So it sort of is almost a paradox, but it works in the way that he does it, in my opinion. So that's why I love the prequels, is because it had this insanely imaginative, creative world building that just developed Star Wars as a whole, rather than... It was such an ambitious project as well. They had so many things going on at once. And here we are. So this is what happens when you talk to me. You'll ask, hey, can you rank the Star Wars films? And I'll give you an entire speech.
No, dude, I love it.
Unrelated to the question.
You must have passed all your freaking English classes with flying colors. All right, what do you see here? I'm sure you killed that.
Yeah, I really, as a storyteller, I really enjoy sort of breaking down things in a logical manner as well, because, there's always that meme of the English teachers like, these curtains are blue because they represent the depression that the character has gone through since the departure of his wife, and they represent his deep resentment for the world. And it's like the author was thinking, there's some blue curtains, and moving on, because that's one of my pet peeves is when somebody takes stuff like that out of context in terms of, this represents this because I said so, because everything has to have symbolism. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily exactly what the writer was wanting you to interpret. But the things that really matter, are character relations and the psychological implications of what those characters are doing and how it relates to actual human relationships in the real world. And, that's one of the funny things is when I tell people I'm writing Amarok, they're like, oh, okay. Like do you know how to write? And it's like, kinda. But it's like, I'm so invested and so interested in this stuff that I'm equally as passionate about it as drawing. So hopefully I'm able to deliver a very good product in terms of writing as well. Even though that's not my main thing, obviously, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. So in conclusion, I would have to say Episode 4 is my third favorite Star Wars film. And then, Return of the Jedi does have to go, which is still very high. It does have to go in the fourth spot.
Do any of the sequels beat the originals or prequels? Anything?
Maybe Force Awakens. So the thing about the sequels, I did like the sequels when I was a kid, but as I sort of grew up,
no in the audience. So
yeah, no. As I sort of grew up, I was like, wait a second, these are not good films. The one thing that I really like about the sequels was Kylo Ren. I really like the idea of his character and how Adam Driver portrayed him. Now, anything else is not really my cup of tea, but the way that, because he's sort of the ultimate monarchical character of, he's the son of Han and Leia, and Luke Skywalker is his uncle, and Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala are his grandparents, and it's like pretty much the prodigy, the biggest prodigy you could possibly be in all of Star Wars, to have all these namesake characters be your relatives, and the sort of stress that puts on you to live up to those sort of expectations was something that I thought they explored very interestingly, because it's like it's very limiting in terms of allowing him to find his own path in the world, because it's like, you're just this person's kid or this person's grandkid, and it's like you can see how it becomes an unhealthy behavior when it becomes an obsession with Darth Vader, because he's moving from living under Luke Skywalker's shadow as his star apprentice and everything to living under Vader's shadow, because he really doesn't understand how to come into his own, because he was never given the opportunity to be a nobody. And they could have done something very interesting there with Rey, because she's the direct opposite of that as a nobody. So I think the concept behind it is a very exciting concept. It was just executed rather terribly.
Thoughts on the upcoming details that Rey is going to be the one restarting the Jedi Order?
Man, it's honestly, it's heartbreaking. That sounds so mean, but here's my deal. Here's my biggest thing is they do have potential to make something good out of it. Or rather, in my opinion, they did. They could have completely turned it around and made it completely original and maybe done something very exciting. But here's the issue. They hired a director who has only directed documentaries about world issues to direct a Star Wars film, which makes absolutely no sense that you would get somebody who's just a documentary and a journalist. And that's the absolute worst because journalists have their unique political agenda. And there's a place and time for that, but it's not necessarily something that you should put face first into Star Wars. Now, obviously, Star Wars is built upon the sort of idea of the little man overcoming the galactic empire. So it's like, obviously it's based in politics, but it never directly blasts it in your face. I mean, the prequels kind of did to a degree, but it wasn't like, you couldn't tell that the person that made this is a Democrat or a Republican. It was a very broad subject sense. And the person that they hired is, like a feminist. So it's like her agenda with that is, in my opinion, has the potential to override the story if you're not careful and you're not really taking care. And so I just don't understand why they would get somebody who's very inexperienced in the world of action films and fantasy films and adventure films to make, what I'm assuming they want to be their big star series. You should be hiring.
That he didn't even like Star Wars.
Yeah, that is so disappointing because it's very frustrating as a fan. And it's like, okay, obviously all this stuff isn't real. You shouldn't be getting like super angry and hateful and sending death threats and everything, but it is tarnishing the original legacy of George Lucas and what he had planned for these stories. Because, if you looked at some of the recent controversy that just came out with the members behind the cast of The Acolyte, they were saying all this stuff that was just blatantly anti-Star Wars. And it's like, if you're going to be in a Star Wars thing, you better love Star Wars, right? Why are they hiring people that don't understand Star Wars, that don't like Star Wars, that don't care about Star Wars? That is the recipe for disaster. Because when you hire somebody that doesn't care about what they're working on, what are they working on it for? The paycheck and the recognition, not the fact that, because as an artist myself, it's like, I could not live without creating. I need to create. I need to do this. It's a thing that I need to do. It's not something that I'm doing for money. It's something that I'm doing because I'm very passionate about it. So when you hire people that aren't passionate, which by the way goes against everything George Lucas believes in, is the idea of passion and selfless joy and all of that. But when you get somebody that calls Star Wars a patriarchal, male-centered, misogynist movie, and they're one of the main characters in your upcoming TV show, it sort of seems to me like you made the wrong decision to hire that person, which it's also frustrating because not only how wrong they are, but how uneducated they are, because Star Wars was one of the major things that really pushed, a strong female-centered character that's not just a damsel in distress. She has a mind of her own. She, is very snarky and in a good way and not in an annoying way. But if you don't understand what George Lucas did for your own gender and you're going to harp on him for it, then I don't believe you have any reason to even have the opportunity to act in a Star Wars film. And the other actor is just, it's so frustrating, man, because they're saying things like, there's not really any good or evil in Star Wars. And it's like, how do you not? He said that. I'm not making this up. It's a quote for quote.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, that's the whole point. How could you miss the entire point of
sad, especially when like George Lucas gives them a script after he leaves for the sequel.
Precisely. And they completely scammed George Lucas. Like, that's not a conspiracy theory. That is straight up facts, because George Lucas, he wasn't going to sell it. He was like, I do not want you guys to mess with it and just use it as a money-making machine. This is something that's very important to me. And so Bob Iger, the guy that bought it, was like, well, I promise you we're going to give you some creative input, and this is going to be your vision, and we're not only in it for the money. So after all that convincing, they finally convinced George to sell it. And what did they do? They said, thank you for the script, George. And then they threw it away. So it's a huge...
Especially with Star Wars. Star Wars fans are some of the most critical and loyal fans out of any...
Exactly. It's like, I don't, because I'm making my own thing, so I don't like have time to complain about it all day long, but I also don't find any use in that. But when it is brought up, it's like, well, this is something I'm very passionate about, and I wish they would handle better, because it was such a massive part of my life to just see it sort of thrown down the drain for hiring people that are not qualified in the slightest to do anything with Star Wars is very disappointing to me, that such little respect is shown to George Lucas and his creation. And the other thing with Marvel, just hiring random celebrities, like what is Harry Styles doing in a Marvel movie? The fact that they're hiring people that aren't even fans of comics and aren't even fans of superheroes is like, doesn't make any sense. And that's why I love Todd, because he gets Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx is a big comic book fan. It's like he loves the medium. He loves Spawn. He loves, this stuff. You have to work with passionate people, because if you're working with soulless, mindless people that are only doing it because of so that they can have bragging rights and make money, it completely ruins it, man. But I mean, that's why I really encourage people to make your own thing, because once you make your own thing, you're entirely invested in that. So it's like, instead of putting all your hope in other people to deliver a story that you want, you now have the opportunity to create entire universes that you really enjoy. And odds are, if you enjoy it, there's going to be other people that do as well. I mean, that's sort of what Todd said, is it's like, well, I enjoy all these different things that I put in Spawn, and I figure that a lot of other guys and girls will too. And they do, of course, because look where we're at now. He built an entire empire from it. So that's, in my opinion, instead of sitting there and complaining about how bad the entertainment industry is and we're going in a recession and people are only making reboots, it's like, well, we're the ones that have to make the new stuff, right? You can't just sit there and expect them to do it for you when they're very clearly not listening at all. So it's like, at a certain point, you just have to take matters into your own hands. And I mean, all my biggest inspirations, which obviously Todd and George Lucas, that's what they did. It's like, if you look at how George Lucas made Star Wars, he does not like Hollywood. He barely worked with Hollywood. He did as little stuff that he could with Hollywood so that there wouldn't be studio interference to market it to a specific audience. Because as soon as you start marketing stuff to a specific audience, it ruins the magic behind the original intent of it, which is to tell an exciting story.
Wasn't Star Wars like one of the first movies that had like the director's credits at the very end, and George Lucas got in trouble by like the Directors Association because...
Well, that's the thing. They couldn't get him in trouble because he had signed a contract that allowed him to do that. He also signed a contract that said, okay, if you're going to let me make this movie, then let me make the sequels as well. And they were like, okay, this is a low budget movie. It's not going to do well. Sure, George, we'll give you the rights. That's the thing. They gave him the rights to the sequels. So as soon as the movie came out, all the Fox executives were like, George, this is a great idea you had that we believed in you since day one. I think we should make sequels to it. And he's like, yeah, we should, but you're not going to profit from it because you signed a contract that said I'm profiting from it now. So he knew what he was doing, which is very smart because the Hollywood execs are very sneaky. Very, very sneaky.
Got him in the end.
Yeah, that is true. They were like, hey, we're going to respect your property. And he was like, oh, and you're going to pay me a lot of money. this is a win-win. And then it turned out to be, well, at least he got a lot of money, you know, and he gets to make a museum, which if you guys aren't major George Lucas mega fans like me, he is insanely interested in comics. He loves comics and sequential art. So he actually used a lot of that money that they gave him to open his own sequential storytelling museum. If you've heard about that, that's what it centers around because of how passionate he is for that medium as well as films, which I'm very excited for. And where is it opening at?
Yeah.
So this is one of the things about me. I am geographically terrible. I don't remember.
I'm sure it's a Google away.
Yeah. You could tell me where you live and I'll forget in 5 minutes. You know. So I want to say it's in California because everything's in California, but I have no idea.
That's fair. Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. See, it is California. All right.
CP, I see you said, isn't the Spawn movie still in the works? Yes.
The awesome thing about Spawn.
Todd's Spawn movie questions a lot.
Well, the thing about Todd's Spawn movie is it's almost cursed because it keeps on getting delayed so much, which, you know, obviously he wants to deliver the best product possible. So it's like very good that they're taking the time with it to push it back. But it's just like stuff just keeps happening. Like Jeremy Renner, he gets hurt. It's like, oh no, not Jeremy Renner. And then it's like the main star of the movie, Jamie Foxx, is injured. So it's like, but I mean, you look at Todd's entire story and what's the main thing? The main thing is that the odds have always been stacked against him from the very start. You know, even, you know, he didn't even think he could break into comics because he was a Canadian lad. So, and they don't do comics in Canada until he saw that one TV show with John Byrne. He was like, hey, I'm from Calgary, Canada. And it was like, oh my goodness, I can actually do this. So, you know, he started trying to get in. And obviously he sent it to 300 to 500 different studios. Half of them didn't even respond. But he just kept doing it. And that's the main thing you got to take away from his story is that he just kept doing it. Or when he was working on Spider-Man, obviously he completely revolutionized the way that Spider-Man looks and just the different mannerisms of Spider-Man, right? Because his main focus was on Spider and then man. And for the beginning of Spider-Man, it's always been such a focus on the man, making sure that it adheres to anatomical corrections that the human body can perform rather than the very dynamic, crazy twisting and turning of the body that Todd was doing. And, you know, the studio execs at Marvel Comics, the editors were like, hey, Todd, stop that. And they were like, stop making the eyes so big. Spider-Man doesn't have big eyes. Spider-Man doesn't use this weird spaghetti webbing that you've invented. And he was like, okay. And then he just kept doing it. And it's like, that's what you got to do. And they almost scared him away. He was like, I'm going to quit. And then they realized they messed up bad because he's their moneymaker. He's making all their money. And so they were like, wait, Todd. What is one thing we can do to get you to stay? And he's like, give me my own title on Spider-Man. And they were like, okay, sure. Which is crazy because he had never written a comic book in his life. And they gave him Spider-Man, their main flagship character, which obviously later editors still got in the way until it finally broke. And he was like, screw you guys. You're not even giving me proper credit on the stuff that I create. So I'm going to go make my own company. And now we have Spawn, which I love that story so much. And I'm sure everybody here is very familiar with it, but it's something that I'm really passionate about and something that I take a lot of inspiration from because of how constricting the entertainment industry can be for artists. They're not trying to help you in any way, and they're just trying to monetize you in the best way that they can. And again, all of this sort of stuff that floats in my mind, it links back to Amarok with the idea that they weren't able to appreciate magic for itself. They always had to industrialize it and make it into their own thing rather than appreciating it as in its natural form. They completely took advantage of it. And so now it is a very bad thing. It is a drug that people are now heavily reliant on. So it's like, you know, all these different things that I think about I like to put in my stories, and it sort of interlinks together with what I create as an artist. So yeah.
Well, sweet. I hate to bring it back to Star Wars, but I've been someone brought up something in chat that I've been thinking about.
No, man, I love talking about Star Wars, so I'm all over the place. You really got to give me a direction to go, or else I'll go off on a tangent, essentially. So works for me. Jar Jar? What'd you say?
He was a very controversial character in the.
What do I think about Jar Jar? Ooh, that is a box of worms to unbox, isn't it? I don't mind Jar Jar. Everybody hates poor Jar Jar. Everybody hates Jar Jar. My personal biggest issue with it is that Ahmed Best got bullied so significantly to the point of malicious death threats and the nastiest things that you could think of saying, to the point of him wanting to commit suicide. Which it's like, that is so uncalled for to have that level of toxicity thrown at the actor for something that is a fictional fake character. But I'm not as annoyed by Jar Jar as a lot of people tend to get. He's not my favorite character by any means.
Not worth the death. Oh.
Yeah, not worth the death threats. I don't think anything's worth the death threats unless, maybe they're glorifying Nazis or something crazy, but definitely not worth the death threats. And he was supposed to be a fun character for kids. And as a kid, I grew up with him. I enjoyed him. I thought he was a silly, goofy guy. And I didn't take it too seriously. Now, when you're a 40-year-old man who has grown up with Star Wars, suddenly it's like, they've ruined it by putting this terrible comic relief in it. And as a kid, it's like, what a silly guy. But yeah, as I've grown up, it's like, obviously I'm not that interested in him as a character. Well, other than the fact that he could have possibly been a Sith Lord, that would have been a Darth Vader level. No, I am your father. That would have been that sort of level of a plot twist if they had made Jar Jar a Sith.
Jar Binks.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been absolutely insane.
It was cool to see the best saving I don't know if I should spoil it, but
honestly, if you haven't seen the 4th episode of The Mandalorian yet, you had time to watch it, so
that's fair.
But
Grogu, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was excited to see that. The main issue that I had with this season of The Mandalorian is that they just sort of felt like they were just throwing stuff in there for the sake of throwing stuff in there. And when they had elements to move the plot along, they rushed it, right? Because I can't say spoilers, but whenever there would be a major plot point that was set up in season 2, they completely skimped over it. And very rushed it very quickly just to get it done, because season 2 had such an excellent build up to, honestly, they could have ended with season 2. They could have had that sort of write your own ending idea to it. But they didn't. And they set some things up that they really could have explored, in sort of the idea of this rivalry with Din and Bo-Katan between the Darksaber and the ruler of Mandalore. And I was very excited because I thought they were setting up this idea that Din Djarin was essentially a nobody. When he started out, he was money obsessed. He was only living for bounties. He didn't really have the vigor or the regalness of a true Mandalorian. He was very much centered around himself, and he was a nobody. He was not even a Mandalorian by blood. So I thought The Mandalorian was going to be this ultimate story about how we go from Din Djarin being a nobody bounty hunter who's not even considered a real Mandalorian to eventually ruling all of Mandalore. And I thought that would have been a very exciting story arc, because you see the beginning of the story and he is a very, he hides behind his armor. He doesn't really communicate with anybody. He shuts himself down from the entire world. So he would not have made a very good leader at the beginning. But as the series went on, you started seeing him being able to reason with people and talk to people and solve problems and all of the things that are required of a great leader. So it was sort of building him up to be this character that came from nothing to be the ultimate ruler of Mandalore. And so it was very depressing when they just completely threw that to the side in the third season, and nothing came to fruition because of it. And it was a little bit disappointing for me. But
yeah, I was hoping the Darksaber wouldn't be given up so easily.
Yeah, we will not say spoilers, but we will say that we are not happy with the way that it was handled at all in the slightest with the Darksaber. I mean, you look at Clone Wars and they dedicate so much to building the mythos and the importance and the... I'm going to go off screen a little bit here. Maybe I can... Whatever. And the importance of the Darksaber, only for it not to be taken as seriously in live action.
They straight up... you
look at season 1 and 2, and it was this very serious thing. You look at season 3, and it's like, yeah, this is just a little gimmick that we don't really need.
2 or Bo should have pulled it out mid-fight.
Right? Because and it sort of has this idea of being a Mandalorian it's what's inside you that makes you a Mandalorian. So you don't need this silly, goofy little Darksaber. And it was just, okay, sure, whatever. You can tell that was very clearly the sort of intent that they were trying to get along with how they handled it, in my opinion.
I guess they were trying to show like the evolution of Mandalorian culture, how it used to be.
Yeah, that they're moving past the dogmatic sort of religiosity of it all, and sort of accepting the more spiritual side of it, and not, which, I mean, that's a good message to have, and that's a good did my camera freeze? Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Sorry about that, guys. That's a very good message to have, but it's handled a very specific way that, in my opinion, had absolutely no buildup behind it. They very quickly switched what they were trying to get across, in my opinion.
CP asks, do you think your French curve is the best French curve, or do you just use whatever's around?
I use whatever's around. I like this guy because I like the swoop. I don't know. It speaks to me. I bought some French curves on Amazon for a few bucks, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use these. Which obviously, if you don't know what a French curve is, it's this thing. But yeah, in my opinion, French curves, they're so diverse in the way that, they can be formed. You got this little guy here, but you just got to find what works for you. And it's really one of the lesser important tools that you need to drop a lot of money on. If you're looking to spend money on art supplies, for comics in particular, I would recommend getting a very nice paper. So as a comic artist, we work on Bristol board, which, this is a sort of cardstock, very fancy cardstock item. So it's not, like, you can't really take it and just do that with it. So, it's a very sturdy paper, and it's smooth, and it's easy to draw on. So if you're going to invest in art supplies, I would recommend checking out Bristol board, and the best brand for that is Eon boards, EON. You just look that up, and they got their whole website. And I currently am using the 100-pound. I don't really understand how they separate these things, but it's called the 100-pound smooth Bristol. That's the one I'm using at the moment. I might get up to like 300-pound or something, which I think, it's not pound. I'm stupid. It's ply. So this is a 1-ply paper. So 3-ply paper has 3 plies, essentially. That makes it more sturdy and better to use. So yeah, if you guys have any more questions about art tools that you would like to invest in, or what you should be spending your money on, I've been doing this for a few years. I've really researched my stuff, and it's something I enjoy talking about and trying to help people figure out what works best for them, because part of it is such an experimentation. Because in my opinion, this is the best whiteout you could get, a Posca paint pen. But some people like the Bic whiteout or whatever. But it's like, it's all up to you as an individual to decide what is going to work best for you and what is the most useful tool that you have access to. So, yeah, hopefully that answered your question. And if anybody else has any more questions in the chat, feel free to bring them up.
Yeah, come on up. I'll say, do you mind pushing that paper up a little bit just so we can see?
Yeah, I was just grabbing a different tool. I'm going to try. I just want to see what this looks like. So the cool thing about inking is that if you're unsure of what you're going to do, you can just pull out a pencil and figure it out. So my original plan was to black this all out. Which the thing about blacking stuff out is that once you black it out, you can't go back. So it's like you don't know what it's going to look like until you do it, essentially. So I'm like, I got to make sure this looks right. So what I might do here is some cross hatching for the cape. Then I might like black the rest out because this is kind of going on. I'm just noodling around. If you've noticed, I'm a very slow artist. It's something that I'm really working on. And obviously there's a huge sort of expectation placed upon me, but at the same time, I got to remember I'm 18. I got years and years to figure this out. So I can take it very,
take your time.
Not have to stress out about.
It's probably easier to get like a bunch of detail and then dial it back rather than the other way around.
Exactly. Right. It's all a learning process. It's like, and then, because I compare myself with people that have been working in the industry for twice as long as I've been alive. So it's like that sort of comparison really is the thief of joy in that sense of, I'm not as good as Todd McFarlane, but I also haven't worked in the industry as long as Todd McFarlane has. So
CP says, congrats on being so strong at such a young age.
Well, thank you, CP. I appreciate it. I think it's very important to always try and better yourself as a person and constantly be very appreciative and grateful of the opportunities that you were given and build off of those, because the gift of life is truly an amazing thing. I mean, the odds of you being here are 1 in 2 billion. So if you just think about for that for a second, it's really important, in my opinion, to make something worthwhile of your life. And the cool thing is that is a different thing to everybody. Everybody has a different reason as to why they want to live, but finding that reason is super important. So yeah, I really try to always constantly improve as a person, no matter what it is, whether it's art, whether it's writing, whether it's my mindset. And I'm a huge Todd McFarlane fan. So, I've seen all his interviews. So even the ones that aren't talked about a lot, but there's this very particular one where he talks about setting the bar low, which is interesting because everybody says set the bar high, set the bar high. But the sort of idea that he has is if you set the bar low, you'll never really be disappointed and you will be forever grateful for everything. It's like, because when we wake up, we have all these expectancies of what the day is going to be like. And we have these ideas of this needs to happen or this is going to be a bad day. And you completely skip over the fact that I'm alive, I'm breathing, I woke up, this wonderful gift of life I have, and then you get mad because your coffee maker isn't working, right? So if it's like, if you wake up expecting everything that could go wrong to go wrong, and not in a negative way, but rather in a way that isn't so demanding of what should be expected. It's a much more grateful approach to life, because anything amazing that happens in your day is just the cherry on top of getting to go about your day, because life itself is a gift. And so, in my opinion, it's like I really resonated with what Todd said there. And I think that's why he is so uber successful with the endeavors. Every single endeavor that he has got, he has been successful in. He wanted to make a comic, he made a comic. He wanted to make a movie, he made a movie. He wanted to make a TV show. He made a TV show. He wanted to make toys. He made toys. So, you know, he knows he's got it figured out pretty good, I'd say. But, you know, and obviously don't limit yourself to one person's mindset. It's a very good idea to sort of explore things that you don't agree with to understand why don't I agree with this. And, you know, so just always learning. And that's one of the major things that art has taught me, is that you can't limit yourself to one particular thing. You always have to be adapting to new methods of learning. So that can be applied to life as well, is trying to not limit yourself to one singular view set that is the only view set you've ever known. So it's like, it's very important that you're taking inspiration from multiple people and at the same time, the other end of that is not just completely radicalizing and going against everything just for the sake of rebelling, but rather to understand how different experiences that people have and where they're coming from, and being able to apply that to your own life and really try to round out, you know, what you want to do with your life, because it's a very important thing. And, you know, it's such an issue that I have with the school system, because it really doesn't set you up to understand what you want out of life. It tells you how to do a bunch of useless things and then gets you in an office job where you're just pushing a pencil and not doing what maybe you had always dreamed about. Because, I mean, again, society is typically all odds are stacked against you in achieving any of your dreams. So you really have to have that individualistic mindset to be able to go out and get there. And that's one of the things that Todd always talks about, is it's like, he's not different than you or me. He's just a guy, but the motivation that he had and the drive and the willpower to make things happen and to work hard for it and to not lay down and, you know, belly up and allow people to take advantage of him. You know, because obviously he talks a lot about his dad and how his dad was very inspiring to him, and he wanted to be just like his dad, except not letting people push him around like his dad got pushed around. So, yeah, I think that's a very important, you know, way to live. So, in conclusion, I'd probably have to say Attack of the Clones is my fifth favorite Star. Yeah. It's not. Yeah, way to bring it all back together. I don't know what my how I would rank the Star Wars movie after the originals.
Fine. That's all I really needed to hear was the first six. Second guess
Right.
was.
Yeah. Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker. And then I'm one of those few people that actually enjoyed Solo. I thought Solo was a very good film.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Rogue One was fantastic. But it's also a very realistic take on Star Wars, which was interesting to see, because it's a much more like militaristic approach rather than, you know, what we're used to seeing, which is laser guns and spaceships. So it was very interesting to see them explore it in that manner rather than limiting themselves. They really pushed the boundaries, but they also got people that understood Star Wars and were fans of Star Wars, which I think is important. So, yeah.
Heck yeah.
All right. I'm hoping to get this done soon. Honestly, I'm sorry.
No, man, it's your night. I appreciate you going this long. This has been an awesome process.
Yeah. So as you can tell, I'm very slow.
So
what?
I said you're very philosophical, so I appreciate your insight.
Oh, thank you. You know, I try my best. That sounds so cocky. I didn't mean it like that. You know, I try my best. It's nothing special. This is just how I am.
Being able to listen to so many different influences like Todd is because they have, a lifetime of experience, and they can impart their wisdom and knowledge, and we can hear their stories and kind of take on what resonates with us. And,
Precisely.
There's a level of common understanding amongst all humans. We all have probably, pretty similar stuff, similar needs, wants, desires. So at the end of the day,
the human experience is a shared experience, which is what makes it so wonderful. Because we're all in the same boat. But figure out if I want to ink this or not. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little test. And you guys get to see my actual drawing skills come out. So this is a little experiment that I'm going to do here. So, all right, keeps glitching out. So the issue is that I did not have my iPad fully charged before I started. So it is dying, but I might have to plug it in or something. But I am going to try and get this done quickly. All right, we got Spawny here. He's happy. Let's give him a big smile. Got his hand, fingers, hours, shape. Okay, now here's the real thing I want to see. Can I black this out and it still sort of makes sense? This is the little stuff that I like to do just to experiment.
A little pre-test.
Yeah, before I do the actual thing. But if you're just joining in, obviously I've spent 2.5 hours on this thing. So if you could follow my Twitter and stuff, you can see more amazing art just like this. Yep. You know what? If it doesn't work and I ruin it, well, that sucks. But I'm gonna do it because it's just a sketch. It's whatever. So, all right. Let's see. So here's what I like to do. I brought up this ink bottle earlier. I have this thing called a Winsor Newton, which looks like a paintbrush, but it's actually an inking brush. So if you look at any old comic book art, this is what they're inking with. You look at Jack Kirby, you look at John Buscema, you look at Mark Silvestri with Daniel Green on top of him. Kind of nerding out here, but if you're into any of that stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But those guys were brush inkers. Now, I don't really have the finesse with a brush that's required to do it, the precise stuff. I do with a brush pen, but not an actual brush. So I just use it to fill in my big, heavy blacks here.
Paint bucket.
Yeah, essentially the paint bucket in real life.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll go up to the line. Sometimes I chicken out, which is fine because you can go in with a separate pen that's a lot smaller and you don't have to worry if you accidentally cover something up that you didn't mean to. So that makes it
Captain
a lot.
Asks the final question in comics, and if I butcher this, I'm sorry. How do you pronounce Buscema? I say Buscema. John Buscema. I don't know if that's how other people pronounce it, but I have heard some people pronounce it that way. John.
I'm gonna stick with that. If you don't know John Buscema's work, he's one of the best comic book artists, but actually his sketches are, in my opinion, much cooler than his finished work, because you can really see that creative energy that he had and that very strong sketching sensibilities that he had in his work. But he has so in comic books, we're always trying to make the human figure as dynamic and as exciting as we can. You look at Todd McFarlane's work and he's doing that all the time. Well, really the guy that sort of fathered that idea was Jack Kirby. And he's the guy that sort of designed half of the Marvel universe. But he was always having these figures that were very in your face, very exciting, very, energetic. So he sort of really introduced that idea of having very energetic comic book art. And John Buscema took that idea, ran with it, and made it even better and became an even better artist, in my opinion. And he's from the 70s. And, if you guys are familiar with Conan the Barbarian, he did a lot of work on that. He did a lot of work on pretty much every Marvel title as well. So he has these very humanistic, organic feeling look to his art that is just very exciting and really sparks the imagination for comic creators all over. So yeah.
Heck yeah. You finishing up that ink on that we can't really see.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. That looks nice.
Yep. Just sort of get it thrown in there. The cool thing I could do is we can see if this works.
Yeah, it's been a sweet process. Make sure if you guys aren't already go follow him on socials, TheArtJedi on Instagram and Twitter. I posted his Indiegogo link to his comic book that he's working on, Amarok. Make sure you guys show him some love there. Yeah, I'll repost all the links right now.
Yeah, if you really want to win my heart over and make me love you forever, it would mean the world to me if you signed up for my comic book. And it's hard for people to do that because we're so used to just hitting the follow button and that be it. But for the sign up, you do actually have to put in your email information so that I can send you updates on the comic. But yeah, if you could do that, I would very, very much appreciate it because I've been trying to build an email list, and that is a very difficult thing to do.
Everyone, give him your email.
Yeah, give me all your email so I can send you spam, please. So I can debate psychological matters with all of you every single day.
We're gonna have to when the Ahsoka show comes out, we're gonna have to have you back on so we can discuss.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm excited for it. I hope they do well.
Think the Mythosaur is gonna show up in that?
That would certainly be interesting. I think they're going to focus a lot more on the world between world aspect of Star Wars in that, which is something that's very interesting because that sort of, to me, that was the sort of, well, now I forgot the arc in the Clone Wars where they go to that planet that's not like with the God of the light and the God of the dark and the brother and the sister and the father and the Holy Trinity and all that stuff. To me, the Rebels version of that was sort of the world between worlds, which I was like super intrigued by.
I was hoping that they would use the world between worlds to reset the sequels.
Yeah, but they are doubling down. So, and they're getting a random director while they're at it that has nothing under her belt, which I don't like to say, oh, she's going to do terrible because maybe she'll do really good. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But the odds are, if you have never directed a movie cinema piece in your life and you've only done documentaries, the odds are you're not going to be as good as somebody with 40 years of experience doing that. So I'm a little disappointed in their
giving you your emails. So you got some
Thank
more.
Thank you. I love this because honestly, guys, this has just been a whole scam and none of this is real. And I scammed all of you. And now I have all your email information. So.
Oh, pranked.
Yeah. Get pranked.
2 hours, 5 minutes.
This is an AI generated video. None of this has been real. And I have only been saying the things you guys wanted to hear.
If that was the case, and this was actually AI, I would probably be terrified.
Yeah, that would be terrifying. Which is great because I convinced you that I'm a human. So I guess you'll never know now.
Oh, yeah. You got to show off that piece in its full glory.
Yeah, look at that. It's almost done. And we are actually racing against the clock here, guys. My iPad is at.
Gotta die? Well, make sure you throw a signature on that bad boy before.
Yeah. It's at 4%.
4%?
I have faith in it. So, but if I randomly go off the air, that is why.
No worries.
As you can tell, I'm like a streaming professional. I always have it figured out, and I'm very responsible with my iPad's life. Yep.
It's all good. 3-hour battery life is plenty.
Yeah.
Fingerfet. He's the one been asking all the Star Wars questions. He's a resident Star Wars fan, along with us. He wants you to drop in the background.
Drop who?
Boba Fett. I don't know where you'd squeeze in Boba Fett, but
well, I could have done that if I hadn't drawn little clouds everywhere. But I can figure it out. Well, I will figure it out. I will figure it out if I get this finished first. That's sort of the oh, you know what? I'll give you guys a little treat. We'll do a little bit of that splatter painting I was talking about if I get it done. So I gotta go fast. It's Sonic the Hedgehog. I am so proud of the internet because they convinced the studio executives of Sonic the Hedgehog movie to fix him, and they listened for once. So
I've actually only seen the first part of the second movie, but I heard that other than the Mario movie, Sonic was one of the best game to live action movies.
Yeah, in my opinion, that one was definitely Arcane has to take the cake on that. But
yeah.
Which is funny because it barely follows the actual game, just does its own thing. But because the game has such amazing world building, they were able to do that and introduce it to new fans in that manner.
I have a lot of League of Legends friends that said that even like Arcane was one of the more milder stories in the League of Legends.
Yeah, they have very expansive lore, but it's not like, it's interesting because they take so much care and put so much effort into their lore, and it's barely referenced in the actual game, but it's very expansive. So, Arcane obviously had to come in and sort of tell a very baseline human level story that any audience can relate with. So that, it will be interesting to see as the series goes on. Is it going to stay with Jinx and Vi and Caitlyn and Echo and all of those characters, or is it going to start exploring the mythos of the rest of the cast, essentially? Which I think they're probably going to start slowly introducing more and more characters as the series goes on, instead of completely switching like an anthology sort of type of deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. This is a zombie spawn, guys. Yeah. This is Spawn on he had a bad hair day. He's losing his hair. He's got a balding hairline.
He's doing too good.
Yeah. But he's
probably at 3% on his iPad. So if there's any final questions or comments you guys want to get in, make sure you come up now.
Yep. Just don't get me on a tangent so that I'm giving a whole big talk and then boom, dead.
Well, yeah. Thanking you, and I just want to thank you again for coming and spending your Friday night with us. This was an awesome experience, and I'm looking forward to doing it again sometime, man.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. This was sweet. Yeah, our first ever physical live drawing. I think it was an overwhelming success. Got to go deep into the Star Wars universe, which I always enjoy, so thank you for that.
And I had a nice little psychological input as well. That's what everybody, you came here for the drawing, you stay here for the psychology, it all works out. Now, I do feel a bit bad because my parents' room is right next to my room and they're trying to sleep right now, but they'll be fine, I think.
Just tell them you're drawing for a bunch of people, random strangers online.
That always works. That's a great line.
Parents understand that.
Yeah. But yeah, they do understand that I have to go on like different shows and stuff to promote my book, which I'm very appreciative of their support, obviously.
What you doing now? I can't really see.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. Well, here, either I'm going to have to tilt my iPad down, but it's not going to take long.
Do it then.
If you can hear it.
Oh, you can. Yeah.
I might be brushing my teeth. I might be spattering. I like to brush my teeth before I go to bed. So, but yeah, I am spattering some whiteout on there, which isn't really going to show up because it takes a few minutes to dry. But it does show up, but it's not as vibrantly white as it could be per se. Okay, so I will try to throw in a Boba Fett here. I don't know. Oh no! Look at this, guys. I'm very irresponsible. I got whiteout on the pen. It's fine. So one of the things about me is it's funny because I'm such a meticulous artist and I'm very particular with where I'm drawing my lines and making sure that it's perfect and that everything aligns and that it's very clean. And I'm a very, very messy person. So I get, as you can tell, I get all sorts of ink and whiteout over me whenever I'm doing this stuff. So
could you push the painting up and just like up and to the right a little bit? Perfect.
to the right. All right. So
there we go.
Oops, sorry, that was kind of loud. But it is drying. I don't know where to put. See, I'm one of those guys that doesn't put my signature. I'm not a trigger happy signature guy. But so I'm always like, when I finish it, I'm like, well, where do I put the signature? So it'll go right here. And the funny thing is I have like first grader handwriting. So you see my very detailed art piece. I'm not even going to put my full name. So you see my very detailed art piece, and then you see my sloppy signature.
All right.
All right. It is in there. So it is done. I might try to throw in Boba Fett. I don't know where I would put him. That's the thing. You needed to.
I just say to keep the piece as is.
I'll pencil him in there, and then maybe if I have to, like, I'll get rid of him later or something. You say we'll put him right in here.
Spamming the moon. I don't know where you.
The moon. He's gonna conquer the moon.
Wow.
He's the next astronaut. You can't really see him. We're gonna put his flag. He's got a flag. It's gonna be the mythosaur, his symbol.
Perfect.
Give him his little antenna. Give him his jetpack.
People who are here will know.
He's on the moon, guys. So
that's great.
There you go. There is my how I ruin my art pieces. That is,
No, this is a sweet piece.
Thank you. It was fun. I had a fun time. It's a fun sketch, and I really enjoyed it. And I like trying to draw on live because I usually am a little hermit man that doesn't talk to anybody. So this is a
great conversation tonight, man. I want to thank you again for being here. This was awesome, and I know the community was very appreciative. Is there any final thoughts you want to depart to?
Please go sign up for my email so I can scam you. My scam business has been going really well recently. So,
that email in there. When Amarok drops, oh man, that's gonna be exciting.
Yeah. So if you want to get a really, really cool trading card, go sign up because you will get a very, very exciting trading card.
You heard the man. We're gonna remind the community real quick. Tomorrow afternoon, She Spawn's doing a comic reading in here. So if you guys like Spawn comics, there'll be a live comic show tomorrow. But man, the splatter adds a lot to it.
It does. It really does. So yeah, my iPad is on 1%. So
all right, well, I appreciate you being here tonight, and we'll keep in touch for sure. Yeah. And appreciate you being here. Thanks again.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on.